Chapter 873, Terrifying Speculation. Chapter 873, Terrifying Speculation. Out of the two King God Realm pirates, one touched the ice crystal stone platform and was turned into a broken ice sculpture, while the other stepped on the rusted chain and had his flesh and blood disappeared, leaving only the skin bag. Everybody felt their hair raising on the back of their nape. If this place were the prison of strong experts, how strong would an expert be who got 13 chains tied to his bones and flesh that year? When a warrior was confined in this place, the ice crystal platform would release the cold energy to confine him while the chains would constantly be taking his energy. How long could that warrior endure? How abundant could his energy and blood chi be to support him until the day he got rid of this imprisonment? How long had he been confined in this place? The pirates didn't dare to imagine further. An icy cold flame flew out, entering the ice crystal stone platform immediately. It was indeed the ice-cold flame. This icy cold living being was one of the heaven flames. It didn't need Shi Yang's thought to land on the ice crystal stone platform. It seemed to take in the energy, dancing over there. "Is it good for you?" asked Shi Yang. "It's the purest cold energy. Although the power in this jade is just 1% of its original, it's still huge for me." The ice-cold flame was so happy. "The remaining energy in this jade stone is enough for me to break through one level. I think you struck it lucky this time. There are some similar ice stones over there." Shi Yang frowned. No, not all of them. Many of them have no cold energy left, while the others have just a little bit. "This one has more energy," said the ice-cold flame. Shi Yang was surprised. While he stood baffled there, the pirates had crept around the rusted chains on the ground, following Jianong forward. After 2 hours, they made a circle around this area. Not every prison has 13 steles and 13 chains. There are only 2 prisons made of 13 steles. The other places have only 12 or 11. There are 32 prisons in total. Jester walked to Shi Yang, who stood still at his spot. "I think you should come to check the other prisons. It's similar to this place with 13 stone steles of 100 meters tall." "Ka Tuor, is there?" "Ka Tuor?" Shi Yang was surprised. What happened to him? He found something. Jester was shivering. He had an idea, but he couldn't confirm it. It seemed he was still checking up something. Shi Yang nodded, sending his thought to the ice-cold flame before walking with Jester towards Ka Tuor's. He saw more stone steles on the way. Those grand stone tablets had complex drawings that looked like a flower whose center was connected with a chain. On his way, he found more similar prisons. Most of the prisons had only 12 or 11 steles surrounding them. At the furthest area from the first 13 stele prison was another prison with 13 stone tablets. These 2 prisons were pretty far from each other, as if they were designed to keep the 2 prisoners from communicating with each other. Ka Tuor was standing near a similar ice crystal stone platform. However, the platform was shattered, and 10 out of 13 chains were pulled off their steles. Pieces of chains were scattered on the ground. Many pirates were standing between the chains, trying not to touch them. "Senior." Seeing Shi Yang, Ka Tuor shouted with astonishment. "What did you find?" Shi Yang frowned. "It's him. He was the one who got chained here." Ka Tuor shivered in thrill, looking so shocked. "Who?" Shi Yang asked as he couldn't react properly at this moment. "The one who gave me the inheritance. I'm sure it's him." Ka Tuor took a deep breath. Chaotic energy had broken the chains and the ice crystal platform here. "I'm 100% sure." Jester was scared. Feng Ku, Jianong, Barrett, and Russell gawked, dropping their jaws. "It's really him?" Shi Yang's eyes brightened, his face disbelieving. Nodding continually, Ka Tuor's face was a little savage. Damn it! Who was so morally corrupted to confine him here and make him endure such torture? The soul altar must have been suppressed, unable to move even a bit. The body was drawn by the iron chain, not to mention that freaking cold energy. This torture wasn't designed for humans. As Ka Tuor took the inheritance from that man, he had considered him his teacher from the bottom of his heart. All of a sudden, he found that his teacher had been imprisoned and tortured for years. Ka Tuor was enraged, as if he had experienced the torture himself. He hated that he couldn't find the one who made all of these and make him suffer the same things. Listening to him, Shi Yang's face darkened, getting colder. Looking at those imprisonment areas, he was furious. The founder of this place was extremely harsh and malignant. To subdue the prisoner's soul, he had used the stone tablets and the chains, which pierced through the prisoner's bones, and the ice crystal stone platform to torture the prisoner, making him suffer an unimaginable pain. Once the prisoner was confined, it would take so many years. Unless the energy of his god body was drained, it would never stop. Although he couldn't see it with his own eyes, thinking about what used to happen here made him feel anger flooding his mind. Shi Yang wasn't different from Ka Tuor, as he had instinctively made the owner of the blood vein ring his teacher. The warrior who had cultivated chaotic power Upanishad was one of the bloodthirstiest cortege of 8, so he would be their family, their precursor in the same school. Knowing his precursor had been confined and tortured for so many years, how could he not be enraged? That man had escaped by pulling the chains and breaking the ice crystal stone platform. He must have used his physical strength to do that. How formidable was this person? Feng Ku was astounded. Too bad that he left. His soul altar was shattered in the lonesome dead territory. Sigh. Ka Tuor scratched his hair in sorrow. If I find out who did it, I will definitely make him endure the same torture. I won't show a bit of mercy. The lonesome dead territory connects to the forbidden land. It should be near here. Anyway, the lonesome dead territory has another entrance. You have good fortune, Ka Tuor. Otherwise, you couldn't have gotten there from here. If you did, you would have been dead by now, said Russell with emotions. Of course. If I can break through in this area, I won't be sunk into the illusory formation, Ka Tuor retorted. Russell just frowned, and didn't comment more. After Ka Tuor had reached the original god realm, his chaotic power Upanishad had gotten back on the right track. Although it hadn't been a long time, his dangerous aura was one level more intimidating than Russell, Jianong, and Barrett's. As they were at the same original god realm, Ka Tuor's confidence was boosted. He knew about the intimidation of his powers, so he didn't need to be careful with his words anymore. In this group, besides Shi Yang, whom he respected deeply, he didn't put anyone in his eyes, including Feng Ku. Ka Tuor, do you know at which realm was the one who you received the inheritance from? I have a speculation, but I'm not so sure, said Jester. I don't know. His soul altar was shattered at that time, and only a seal of Upanishad remained. Or else, my cultivation wouldn't have deviated. Since his seal of Upanishad wasn't complete, I couldn't use his full power. Ka Tuor shook his head. Jester, what speculation do you have? Feng Ku frowned. Jester was a top alchemist with a great reputation in the Heaven Punishment City. He had studied a lot of ancient books, and he knew many secrets of the past. Feng Ku always highly valued his opinion. Jianong's team also looked at him. Jester's face twitched. His eyes were filled with respect as he moistened his lips, talking with his dry voice. If I tell you guys, maybe you will think I'm crazy. We won't. Feng Ku shook his head. Shi Yang also looked at him. Tell us. Everybody believes in your knowledge. Jester forced a smile. After we got to this place, I found that my knowledge is still shallow. Yeah, let me tell you my point of view. Don't tease me or make jokes. It's just my speculation. I just feel it should be like that. I don't have evidence, so don't chase me. I won't be able to come up with an answer that can satisfy you. Don't babble. Say it quick. Feng Rao couldn't help but urge him. She thought he was a little bit odd today. I think you all notice that there are 32 prisons in this area, of which 20 prisons are made of 11 stone steelies, 10 prisons are made of 12 stone steelies, and only 2 prisons are made of 13 steelies. Jester took a deep breath, his voice trembling. I've read an incomplete ancient book. It reads that a long, long time ago, even before the ancient time, the God clan had classified the realms just like these stones. One stone represented one realm. What do you mean? Russell couldn't understand his ideas. Our realms are ranked from the lowest realm to the highest realm as follows: elementary, nascent, human, disaster, earth, nirvana, sky, spirit, true God, king God, original God, ethereal god, and incipient god. 13 realms in total. So, 1 stone tablet for the elementary realm. After breaking through, it's 2 stone tablets when entering the nascent realm. As such, 1 more stone tablet for each time of increase in realm, Jester explained carefully. Everybody was perplexed, looking at him in complete silence. They didn't even breathe. Since this place has 13 stone steles, if we can use the number of the steles to define the realm, the one who got imprisoned here should be at, Jester couldn't finish. Incipient god realm. Shi Yang was shaken. He couldn't help but shout his answer, even though he was always calm and cold. Yes, if we use the number of stone steles to classify the realms, the one who got imprisoned here should be at the incipient god realm. Jester felt powerless, his face pale while sweat was beading his forehead. The incipient god realm, the peak realm that we've ever known. Warriors at this realm could destroy an entire lifestar with one hand. However, this kind of an existence had only been told about in legends, the godly existence that no one has ever seen. Everyone was silent, their eyes empty. They gasped for their breath as they were so stunned. Feng Ku and the other 3 big leaders shivered, their face baffled. Shi Yang was perplexed as if his soul had left his body. Jester's speculation had scared him out of his wits. Chapter 874. We have many people here. Chapter 874. We have many people here. If alchemist Jester's speculations were true, it would mean this place used to imprison 2 incipient god realm experts, 10 ethereal god realm experts, and 20 original god realm expert. What kind of a concept was that? Let alone the incipient god realm experts, any expert at the ethereal god realm could have enough power to terminate the entire raging flamestar area. 10 ethereal god realm experts plus 2 incipient god realm experts was an earth-destroying power, which was beyond people's imagination. Thus, all of them gawked, as they were so stunned that they didn't know what to say. After a while, Jester talked with a bitter face, sniveling, "Of course, it's just my assumption. I don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, if it's true, how strong would the jailers have been who had confined those warriors?" Everybody was frightened, sinking deep in fear again. Swoosh swoosh. A flame flew towards them from a far distance. It turned into a flash, crossing by Shi Yang and disappearing into the ice crystal stone platform next to Ka2or. Although people were sinking in their fears, they were sensitive enough to catch that glimpse. Shi Yang beamed a faint smile. The ice crystal stone platforms in this area has an extremely cold energy that is a tonic to my little buddy over there. As people were familiar with his strange performance, they didn't consider it bizarre. They just nodded and said nothing else. "Shi Yang, did the star map show a new location?" At this moment, Feng Ku couldn't help but ask. He didn't ask Shi Yang to hand over the star map, since he understood that him holding the star map wasn't really a wise move. "Let me check." Shi Yang took the star map out of his sleeve while frowning, and his face went stiff immediately after. He shook his head begrudgingly. "I am unable to check it." "How is it?" Russell's pupils shrank. "This area restrains the soul altar. I must use energy of the soul altar to read the star map. Thus, I can't see the route in there." Pausing for a while, he threw the star map to Feng Ku. "You should give it a try." Feng Ku caught the star map, closing his eyes to sense. Then, he shook his head begrudgingly. "I can't check out the mysteries of the star map." "Then, what should we do?" Jianong wore a dispirited face. "If we can't check the star map, how could we find the direction to the new star area? Are we left with only one option of returning using the previous path to the illusory formation? I think outside this forbidden land is also an illusory formation. As long as we leave this area, we will get into the illusory formation again." Feng Ku pondered for a while and then shifted his look to Shi Yang. "What do you think?" "Maybe. Anyway, I want to stay here for a while to wait for my buddy to finish his absorption." Shi Yang shrugged, talking deliberately. "If you can't wait, just leave then." People darkened their faces. Without him pioneering, once they got into the illusory formation one more time, they would be lost again. Although Feng Ku's realm was high, he didn't know the star power Upanishad, so he couldn't reflect on the trails of the star map in his head. If Shi Yang didn't lead them, no one was sure they could find a new star area. Thus, even though they were annoyed, they had to wait here as he didn't want to leave yet. No one dared to take even one step. What a pity. Our realm is too low, or else, we might have been able to solve the mysteries of this area. At least, we could have known something from the ancient patterns on those stone steles. Jester shook his head with regret. Although he was at the original god realm and understood formations, he couldn't endure studying the patterns on the stone steles for a long time. Otherwise, his soul would feel exhausted, and hallucinations would happen. Swoosh swoosh. An ear-splitting hissing and screaming echoed through the area they had landed before, as people started to appear. Feng Ku discolored, shouting. Strong experts from the three powerful forces. Everybody was frightened. They paled, shivering like leaves. They burst out in panic, wanting to flee away. Barrett, Russell, and Genome couldn't keep their mind clear anymore. Fear flashed in their eyes. It's not a bad thing meeting them here, Shi Yang said in a light tone, his face calm as if he weren't worried at all. Many pirates were fluttered uneasily. But listening to him, they were so surprised, looking at him as they didn't get what he meant. Feng Rao was astounded for a while, but she managed to pull herself together. She was the first one to react. Her beautiful face looked touched as she shouted, "Our soul altar is restrained, and it will be the same for them. Nobody can use powers Upanishad now. We can only use the energy in the god body to attack and defend. We won't be hurt. At least, we have many people here." People had their eyes brightened. Russell's face was ferocious. The corners of his mouth stretched into a wicked curve as he laughed. "Oh yeah, we don't need to be afraid of them in this area. Perhaps, it's our chance today." Feng Ku's face became cold as veins on his neck convulsed. Crispy cracking sounds echoed from his body, as though he was urging the energy of his god body. Indeed, we don't need to be afraid of them. As the pirates heard that, their god body started to diffuse the wicked, murderous intention. They were filled with fighting spirit immediately. They not only pulled themselves together, they also stopped running away and started to approach the others. They were the most combative force in the raging Flamestar area. All of them had a life of licking blood from their sabers. They weren't afraid of battle. Quite the contrary, when they knew death might be not their only consequence, they had the guts and excitement to battle at least once. The three big forces had pressed them for years. They always sent hotshots to clear the pirates. As they didn't have good feelings for them, when they had a chance, they would try to have a big, furious bite for sure. With high realms, although the warriors can't use their powers Upanishad, it will not easy to deal with him even when they use just the intimidating power of their god body. Remember, we have to use the huge crowd tactic. We are greater in number here. We can be like the bees when their hive is broken. We have to tear them apart. That's how we deal with high realm warriors. We're lucky that this area favors us. Since the soul altar is restrained, we can use our number of people to make up the gap between realms. Folks, you have to take this chance and kill more people. Feng Ku was very sane. He understood their strengths and weakness well. He knew they could only rely on the number of warriors to hurt their opponent. Before they engaged in the battle, he made the strategy clear first. Everybody agreed with him noisily. Several thousand pirates of different organizations packed the place like a cloud of swarming locusts. They came and surrounded the area where the three forces were arriving. Shortly, they returned to the place from where they had first entered in this area. The groups of Bai Tian, Li Yufeng, and Aogu Duo were still baffled, watching the marvelous scene of this area. When the three big forces had entered the Forbidden Land, they had several hundred warriors. However, most of them were killed by the dangers in Forbidden Land. At this moment, they had just more than 100 elite warriors. Fan He of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce wore a dark green garment. He looked archaic and lanky. He just frowned while talking calmly. "The pirates have arrived." "Damn." Tuor Hai's face was cold. "Our soul altar can't move, and our powers Upanishad are restrained. We can't use any energy. Should we use the god body to wrestle with them? It's not good." They all felt the strange situation here. Hearing Fan He, They immediately knew what the pirates wanted to do under the magical and weird circumstances of this area. They are so many. If we fought them normally, we could use our advantageous realms to kill them. But now, as we can use only our physical strength of the god body, it would be tough. Aogu Duo also had a headache. It's simple. Just kill the leaders. When the 4 big leaders are killed, I think those pirates won't be able to endure for a long time. With no commanders, they can't utilize their advantage of having a larger number. They will scatter and go disorderly shortly, said Bai Tian sanely. Fan He nodded, talking deliberately. We will do as Commander Bai Tian said. I will kill Feng Ku first. You guys take care of Russell, Jianong, and Barrett. The second sky of original God Realm warriors fight with the first sky of original God Realm warriors. Even if you can only use the power of your god body, you can trounce them. You just need to keep in mind one thing. Do not linger. All of them were smart and wicked leaders. They tacitly knew what Fan He wanted them to do, and nodded in agreement. Shortly, the pirates came and surrounded them. They roared and hissed with ferocious faces to increase their auras. The energy in their body burst out at once. Warriors who had higher realm would have more energy accumulated in their god body. The increase of their realm had to be close to the development of their body. Although the 3 big forces were outnumbered, they had more elite warriors with better god bodies. As long as they didn't need to fight for a long time, they wouldn't lose. Shi Yang. Bai Tian shouted as he saw a man walking in the front of the pirate team. He frowned while talking. Don't be stubborn. If you leave with me now, I can ensure your safety. Until now, he still wanted to recruit Shi Yang. He didn't want to ruin what he had built. I will memorize your appreciation, Commander. However, Precursor Feng Ku has offered me a better deal. I'm sorry. Shi Yang grinned. You are Shi Yang? Fan He snorted, his face cold and harsh. Kid, you have a good innate endowment. However, you don't know how to appreciate favors. You will find it hard to have a bigger room for your development. While talking, his body echoed some explosions as his god body enlarged immediately. His arms became like translucent jewels, releasing formidable energy fluctuation. Crack, crack, crack. The bones in his body resounded the cracking sounds as his god body became several feet taller. His lanky physique became strangely muscular. He stomped on the ground, and the hard stony ground under his foot exploded. A furious attacking energy started from him and rushed directly towards Shi Yang. In this place, their soul altar was tied, so they couldn't urge the power Upanishad. However, Fan He had just used the bursting power of his god body, soaring up into the sky. He shouted at Shi Yang and also looked at him, but Shi Yang knew that Fan His target wasn't him. It was Feng Ku, who was standing next to him. Hit the king first to destroy the army. Fan He was using this strategy. He would try to kill Feng Ku first and make the pirates disorderly when they lost their leader. However, Fan He was wrong in one point. In this place where the soul altar was restrained, the power of the god body Shi Yang could use wasn't less than his. Ha ha. Shi Yang stooped and laughed dryly. His face became cold as a surging energy torrentially shot out of his god body, and a red nimbus covered him instantaneously. The power of the immortal demon blood was urged in just a blink. At that moment, Shi Yang's god body seemed to be painted with red blood. Under the given circumstances that they couldn't use their soul altar, the wicked negative energy and the immortal demon blood weren't affected. When he activated the petrification marital spirit and the immortal martial spirit, his fighting competence skyrocketed. The death and space powers Upanishad needed the essence chi, and the star power Upanishad required star energy. In this condition where his soul altar, essence chi, and the star energy were bound, it was hard to use and explode with his energy. However, the wicked negative energy in his acupuncture points and the massive energy of the immortal demon blood weren't bound to the soul altar. They didn't require a power Upanishad to control, so they weren't affected. With these conditions, in the soul confining platform, his fighting competence had totally surpassed Feng Ku. Chapter 875. The Demonic Flower Blooms. Chapter 875. The Demonic Flower Blooms. Fan He seemed to turn into a jewel man, his entire body becoming translucent and fulgent. People could even see the veins on the back of his jade-like hands. Crack, crack. Crispy sounds echoed from his body as if the bones had been strained out of their joints. Under the circumstances that he couldn't use his power Upanishad, he could still show a bursting, intimidating force. Boom. He was the only warrior here could use his god body's power to fly across the sky like a shooting star. He was traveling fast, reaching at Shi Yang's position instantly. However, it's obvious that his target wasn't Shi Yang. Feng Ke looked like he was confronting the archenemy. He couldn't help but shout, "Besiege him!" Many blue demon pirates rushed over, turning into fading shadows and trying to stop Fan He. Fan He was calm and cold, without any emotions in his eyes. He was too sane. While his god body was flying, his two jade arms moved like snakes. When his translucent jade hands touched people, they acted like a sharp sword, piercing through the god body of anyone coming to stop him. Swish, swish. The blue demon pirates had their bodies pierced through, bleeding badly. They couldn't stop Fan He. Shortly, their bodies exploded, pieces of flesh splashing together with blood. Drilling through the thick blood mist, Fan He maintained a dull pair of eyes, but his god body was like a sword that could break anything. Under his arms, flesh bodies burst off. Those pirates died tragically. Shortly, he left 7 shattered bodies behind. None of them were intact. Fan He was hurried to kill Feng Ke. He didn't pause even a second, moving like a beam of light that cut off all obstacles on his way. The distance between Fan He and Feng Ke was shortened rapidly. Although the blue demon pirates were so scared, none of them retreated. They knew they would die, but they still hindered and attacked the other just like moths throwing themselves into a fire, which could light them up for a while. Pirates were the gang of people who treasured their brotherhood a lot. Since those people had followed Feng Ke, they had given him their lives. To them, Feng Ke's words were the truth that nothing could overturn. Although they knew they would be killed instantly, they still stormed over without fear. Piercing through this crowd, Fan He was like a jewel monster killing everyone who came near him. A light was moving on his body, while golden-colored air shot out of his fingers, knees, and arms with an invincible spirit. The pirates were ripped apart like tofu. They could halt him for a short moment, but they couldn't trouble him much. Feng Ke was now within Fan He's reach. At this moment, Shi Yang's face turned cold and harsh, as a streak of blood crossed his eyes. Roar! Feng Ke stooped and roared, his god body making a thundering sound. His long hair fluttered without any wind, escaping the control. His face looked so malignant. Fan He, you and I don't share the same sky. Feng Ke flashed with lightning and thunder. He wanted to risk his life against the enemy. Leave him to me. At this moment, Shi Yang suddenly yelled after keeping silent for a while. He turned around and asked Feng Ke, "You go deal with the others. Try to control the situation. Leave Fan He to me." Feng Ke was surprised. Shi Yang. Feng Rao couldn't help but scream softly, fear filling her beautiful eyes. "Don't show off." Shi Yang turned around, smiling brightly. He looked even more arrogant as he said, "It's okay, I can handle it." Shortly, a murderous aura shot out while his god body became blood red and his eyes wildly brutal. A violent force was bursting in his body that he couldn't control. Shi Yang turned into a thick blood halo, storming towards Fan He. Old codger, without any power Upanishads, you can't resist for a long time. Mental attack going first was his usual strategy. At the moment he stormed over, his wicked words fired. "You have lived for so long. Of course, your power Upanishad is subtle and excellent. Anyway, you're too old, so your god body can't compare to young people's. It's not capable enough." A bloody hand carrying the bloodthirsty, desperate, and crazy auras swarmed like the rising tide, covering Fan He from a far distance. Death Seal. The Death Seal was made of negative energy. It didn't need the power Upanishad to cooperate or the God Soul to control it. The terrifying seal appeared visibly like a mountain of bones and a sea of blood. The Death Seal pressed down in the void. The air sizzled strangely while the bloodthirsty, desperate, and crazy aura diffused out. A bloody, murderous aura covered the whole sky, looking like a bloody water spraying in the sky. Fan he discolored in fear. His eyes were placid, although he was surprised. He was at the third sky of original God realm, but his soul altar was confined here. How could that kid use his energy with only the third sky of King God realm cultivation base? He couldn't understand it. Hesitating for a while, Fan he restored his calmness and grinned faintly. Kid, you still need your mama's tits. Have you ever heard about the saying with age comes strength? Crack crack. Sounds of cracking bones echoed unceasingly. Fan he now had a golden halo on his body. This old man cultivated metal power Upanishad. With the sharp metal chi of his god body, he could be like a metal spear tearing the sky with its sharp head. Boom. The golden spear pierced through the blood seal. Blood-red light emitted while the powers impacted, sending a brilliant light curtain into the air. When the glorious light vanished, Fan he appeared with ragged clothes, revealing a golden fish-scaled armor covering his entire body, shielding it from the bloodlight. Shi Yang was like a ferocious beast, as bloodthirsty and wicked intentions sparkled in his blood eyes. His god body was now blood-red, with a tremendous murderous aura twirling around like a bizarre dragon, which was gushing something out of its mouth. He lowered his voice and laughed evilly. Shi Yang gathered his energy and stormed over again. Boom boom boom. Everywhere his god body passed, the stone ground under his feet exploded, sending crushed stones into the air, which then turned into a grey mist that snatched on Fan he. Fan he frowned, but his face was still tranquil. He turned and looked here and there. At this moment, the battle between the pirates and the three forces was fierily carrying on. Among the three powerful forces had many hotshots, from which Aogu Duo, Bi Tian, and Li Yu Feng were at the second sky of original God realm. Their god body had been quenched powerfully. Even if they couldn't use their power Upanishads, they still had seemingly infinite power. However, at least 100 pirates were encircling each original God realm warrior. They risked their lives to attack without getting afraid of being killed. They had used their big numbers to make up the gap between their powers. As the pirates had so many members here, they weren't really in a disadvantaged situation. And, if this battle were to last longer, and if Aogu Duo's team used too much of power, they would be worn out until they got destroyed. The situation wasn't so positive. Fan he took a deep breath, talking faintly. Can't waste time. I think so. Shi Yang's voice thundered, as a brutal aura swarmed over like a blood cloud. Staying in the middle of the cloud, Shi Yang looked like a demon in hell. Pallid tentacles jutted out from each of his acupuncture points, which made him look more like a ferocious demon. At that moment, Shi Yang stayed in his blood cloud, releasing the flames. Each of those flames was a heaven flame, which was a special life form. As they were unique beings in the soul forms, the soul confining platform couldn't restrain them, so their power wasn't subdued. The 9 serenities soul devouring flame, corpse vanishing flame, vermilion bird true flame, yin spirit ghost flame, earth flame, and the world extinguishing thunder flame flew out. They were heaven flames of different classes. They flew like the pure fire spirits, moving like weaving shuttles amidst the crowd. Warriors of the 3 big forces had their soul altar restrained, so they couldn't release the powers Upanishad. Once the heaven flames targeted them, they would run helter-skelter. They could be burned to death, or the flame would flood into their sea of consciousness and destroy their soul altar. As soon as the heaven flames flew out, the initially balanced battle suddenly favored one side. No need to mention the warriors at the King God realm. Even the original God realm warriors like Aogu Duo had to run instead of clashing with the heaven flames. They couldn't endure, so they had to run away. Fan he originally wanted to finish this battle fast. But, seeing the earth-shaking commotion, he showed his hesitation for the first time. He couldn't help but shout. Retreat now. In the soul-confining platform, their soul altar was restrained, so they couldn't urge their energies. At this moment, the 3 big forces weren't the opponents of the heaven flames. They could only retreat to save their force. Fan his shout had wakened up many warriors of the 3 powerful forces. They didn't hesitate. Even Fan he, who wanted to attack with all of his power, had to stop and retreat to their previous way in fright, so they didn't wait to follow him in the retreat. Aogu Duo's group didn't dare to linger. They didn't care about their wounded or killed subordinates, withdrawing fast to the illusory formation from the soul-confining platform. The fierce battle had been overturned because of the heaven flames. It ended quickly just like that. The soul-confining platform now had the dead bodies of 1/3 of the three big forces members. The dead situation of each corpse was different. Some were burned, some had their soul altar exploded, while the others were struck by lightning. Most of them were killed by the heaven flames in that short moment. Many pirates were dead too. However, this number was much smaller than what the three powerful forces had to bear. Most of them were killed by Fan He, Aogu Duo, and the other strong experts. The battle, which was supposed to be fierce, had ended just like that, leaving people with many surprises. Heaven flames danced in the soul-confining platform, drawing beautiful flaming curves in the air. They were gradually gathered by Shi Yang. His eyes resumed their regular color. Shi Yang didn't seem happy, but more solemn. He didn't look at Feng Ku and the others but squinted, walking towards a stone stele in front of them. The flower-like drawing on that stele had become more, oddly beautiful. No beam of essence chi from the dead members of the three forces or the pirates came to him. While they were fighting, the dead aura of those people turned into grey thread-like smoke, congregating at one of the stone steles, the one that Shi Yang was looking. The eccentric flower on that stone tablet was just a drawing. But at this moment, it looked so vivid and lively, as if it had been revived with beautiful colors. The iron chain connected to the center of the stone stele shimmered. The rusted spots on it were all gone, as if someone had just cleaned the chain. Shi Yang could feel a faint energy beaming moving inside the chain. Many dead people who fell near the chain had their flesh and blood taken away, leaving only the skin bag and softened bones. The marrow inside the bones was also sucked away. The flower drawing on the stone tablet started to glow amidst a beautiful halo. It looked more like a massive, open mouth. "It feels strange," Shi Yang let out a light shout. People also looked at what he was looking, the beautiful flower on that stone stele. Alchemist Jester had his eyes brightened, as if he was trying to recall something. His face twitched while he felt uneasy suddenly. . Chapter 876, Dark Prison Demonic Flower. Chapter 876, Dark Prison Demonic Flower. An eccentric flower drawn in the center of the 100-meter-tall tablet caught everyone's eyes even though it occupied just a small part of the tablet. That bizarre flower was fresh and vivid, living on that stone tablet. All of a sudden, it seemed like it wanted to leave the stone stele as it released a strange and evil energy fluctuation wave. Boom, boom, boom. The iron chain connected to that flower suddenly burst off. Pieces of chain floated up, flying towards the demonic flower. Jester discolored in fear. He suddenly recalled something, shouting hoarsely, "Dark Prison Demonic Flower! It's the Dark Prison Demonic Flower!" Everybody was startled, looking at him instinctively. Shi Yang slammed his brows together. "Jester, elaborate please. Do you know the origin of the soul-sucking demonic flower? The ones that were on the three victims that you asked me to cure?" Jester took a deep breath, his face in a grimace. Shi Yang shook his head. "How would I know that? The soul-sucking demonic flower originates from the dark prison demonic flower. However, it doesn't have the strange and malignant features of the dark prison demonic flower. Its evil and peculiar features have been reduced many times. They said that when the soul-sucking demonic flower ascends to the acme, it will become the dark prison demonic flower. However, I don't know how magical it would be. I only know that dark prison demonic flower doesn't belong to the raging flamestar area. I used to see it in an ancient book I've read. The flower on that stone tablet is a dark prison demonic flower," said Jester uneasily. "You don't know its features. What are you afraid of?" Feng Ku couldn't understand. "Is the soul-sucking demonic flower dangerous? Don't you know how weak the victims of the soul-sucking demonic flower become?" Jester forced a smile. Dark prison demonic flower is the ancestor of the soul-sucking demonic flower. The soul-sucking demonic flower has only one part of the dark prison demonic flower's features, and it is still extremely dangerous. Do we need to discuss how terrifying the dark prison demonic flower could be? Feng Ku was frightened. While they were talking, The stone steely cracked. The beautiful, fresh flower in the center swayed continually. All of a sudden, the stone steely exploded under their gazes. The 3-meter-tall demonic flower emerged from the stone tablet. The demonic flower shrouded a strange creature. It looked human. However, they could only see from the shoulder up. The skinny face made him look more like a skull with some viscous substances. A trickle of some blood-like liquid rolled down from his closed eyes. He seemed to be in deep sleep, unconscious of what was happening. The peculiar fresh flower covered him entirely. He looked like a person rolled in a thick blanket, leaving only the head out. This demonic flower hadn't bloomed yet. Although the petals looked beautiful, they hadn't completely expanded. A strange, evil aura diffused from the demonic flower and the man. That man hadn't opened his eyes yet, but the aura of his had scared everybody else as if that man would jump up and kill them all in a second. Swish swish. The demonic flower suddenly jumped out of the stone steely, aiming at Black Horn, the peak of King God Realm Warrior and Barret's subordinate. Black Horn cultivated icy cold power. Even when his soul altar was restrained, his body was still cold and diffused cold air. The demonic flower flashed then disappeared. The flower opened like a giant mouth of a beast. It didn't leave Black Horn time to react, swallowing him immediately. Crack, crack. Those cracking sounds rose the hair on people's napes. Each petal acted like teeth, nibbling on Black Horn's bones. Thick blood oozed out from the pistil of that demonic flower. Black Horn's screeching resounded once before vanishing. It seemed like his body and soul altar had been completely chewed off. The blood chi diffused immediately. The demonic flower took in his blood chi and became more fresh and beautiful. The man in the flower's shroud seemed to have more blood and flesh on his face. Black Horn. Barret screamed wildly like an enraged beast. Destroy this demonic flower for me. His warriors had the same grudge. They risked their lives and swarmed over, striking their sharp weapons on the demonic flower. Various lights flashed. A clear, bright halo appeared on the magnificent petals of the flower. The petals just swayed and they were able to send all the sharp weapons backward. None of the petals were damaged. They were flexible and agile as if they were human limbs. They were so peculiarly dangerous. After swallowing Black Horn, the demonic flower didn't pause for even a second. A sound like a fan whirling came from the flower's stamen and pistil. The flower floated, moving in the air. Another pirate who was standing nearest to that demonic flower became its next target. The pirate didn't have the power to resist as the flower engulfed him. The sounds of bones being chewed had numbed people's scalps. That King God Realm pirate couldn't even scream. Blood splashed as he died instantly. The bony face of the man who was covered by the demonic flower now had more flesh. Some spikes started to grow on his exposed shoulder. However, he still had his eyes closed as if the energy from the victims weren't enough to wake him up yet. He used the dark prison demonic flower to swallow blood and flesh from the warriors instinctively since his body and this demonic flower had been fused together completely and perfectly. The demonic flower had become his mouth, continually taking in blood and flesh to make up for the loss or damage to his body in order to ultimately wake him up. However, the powers of Black Horn and that King God Realm warrior were just a grain of salt that was poured into the sea. It was not enough to wake him up. The flower was still floating and swaying in the air. Its petals became more vivid. The flower moved like a big mouth chewing on bones, looking for a new victim. People looked at that flower dazedly, their countenance panic-stricken. A deep fear arose in their heart. Barret was about to go crazy. He shouted and roared as his dark red god body moved toward the demonic flower. Don't! Foam Ku, Russell, and Jianong shouted in unison. They flew out, grabbing Barret and holding him back. Damn it! Get off of me! Barret struggled, his face reddening. He shouted as he completely lost his mind. I want to rip it off. However, the demonic flower didn't listen to his screams. It was still flying quickly in the sky, aiming for another King God Realm pirate. It was Russell's subordinate. In this place, they all got their soul altar confined so they couldn't use their energy to escape into the void. Their agility was affected badly. Quite the contrary, That demonic flower seemed to not be affected by the conditions in this area. It moved swiftly in the void like lightning. Barrett's subordinate saw the flower coming after him. He was so desperate, running like a shuttle between the stone steles. However, no matter how much he tried, it was no use. In the end, the demonic flower caught up with him and engulfed him. More sounds of hair-raising chewing occurred. The flower bud spurted out pieces of bones and flood. The thick scent of blood nauseated people. All of the pirates were startled. They couldn't help but retreat as far away from the flower as possible. They were afraid that they would become the next target. Ku and the others shouted to order their men stay away and to not let the demonic flower target them. They were constantly backing off, but the demonic flower seemed to know what to do. It was able to spot out lives on this soul-confining platform. A charming figure became the new target of that demonic flower. It headed towards her, moving fast. Little Rao. Ku couldn't help but scream pitifully. He didn't care about Barrett anymore, dashing towards Rao. Rao was the new target of the demonic flower. Finally, the indifferent Shi Yang couldn't stay idle anymore. His eyes were as cold as the tip of a sword. His body moved like a sharp sword that was about to be used to stab someone. 5 colored flames moved with him radiantly. The flames had clear, different energy classes. The vermilion bird true flame and the earth flame suddenly burst out. The immense fire sea burning in the air started to swarm over Rao. When the demonic flower was about to reach Rao, it felt something strange. The flower halted in the void before abruptly changing its direction, heading to a pirate under Jianong's command. It gave up on Rao. Ku exhaled in relief. He paused and shouted again, "Get away!" Shi Yang's cold face was hot with the rage of flame. He shouted, "Ka Tuor, tell your people to stay close to me. Do not leave further than 100 meters." Ka Tuor immediately shouted and yelled at his subordinates. Warriors under his command were sunk in fear. Hearing his shouts, they were thrilled. All moved toward Shi Yang quickly without an extra word. Shi Yang walked towards Rao, looking at her as he had made up his mind. "Stay close to me." Rao nodded continually, her face pale. "Don't worry. Even if someone beats me for it, I won't leave you. Go to Shi Yang." Ku was baffled for a while before he reacted. He shouted ear-splittingly. Russell, Jianong, and Barrett understood the matter. Just like Ku, they gave the same order to their people. Leaders of the other forces did the same. They didn't need others to urge them. All moved towards Shi Yang as quickly as they could, as if they were afraid that they couldn't get near him. That pirate under Jianong's command became the next victim. While people ran to Shi Yang, the demonic flower swallowed him. He became the nutrient for that freak inside the flower. The spikes on his shoulder had jutted out 2 more inches. His face looked less skinny. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The burning fire sea circled the pirates. The hot power of the flames flooded the area, covering all the pirates. After the demonic flower had finished consuming the warrior, it hovered by the steles outside the sea of fire as if it was sensing or watching something. After a while, the demonic flower found its new target. It flew towards the illusory formation outside the soul-confining platform. It didn't pay attention to Shi Yang's group anymore. He will be in trouble this time. Shi Yang was surprised for a while before he laughed at their misfortune. That demonic flower has detected them. I think those guys will run into some big trouble. Their powers aren't restrained in that illusory formation. The demonic flower can't swallow them all. Anyway, he has the 3rd sky of original God Realm cultivation base. Ku frowned. He isn't easy to deal with, indeed. Listening to him, Shi Yang understood. They couldn't use their soul altar in the soul-confining platform. However, other places didn't have this terrifying restriction. People started to ask Jester about the intimidating origin of that demonic flower despite their fear. However, they found the warriors of the 3 big forces returning before Jester could give them an explanation. They returned from the illusory formation with deep fear in their eyes. Everybody was baffled. Chapter 877, A Thing of the God Clan. Chapter 877, A Thing of the God Clan. Roar. Grr. Thundering roars came from the illusory formation outside the soul-confining platform. It seemed some creatures had escaped from their cages, starting to hunt in the illusory formation. He stayed together with the hotshots of the three big forces, as they left previously, then returned shortly, all rushing helter-skelter. When those people returned to the soul-confining platform, many of them were wounded. Some had lost their limbs, and they all looked frightened. Shi Yang's group stayed in the circle made of heaven flame, looking at those people with odd faces. They could also hear the terrible roaring outside, but they weren't amused. As the demonic flower was hunting in the soul-confining platform, they thought that the illusory formation out there would be safer. Unexpectedly, it was full of dangers as well. At this moment, everybody was hopelessly reluctant, their minds bitter. His group entered the soul-confining platform while fearfully astounded as they looked in Shi Yang's direction. They didn't know why the others had to put up so many layers of guards. But they got to know the reason soon. That demonic flower was alone in the illusory formation, so it returned to the soul-confining platform. A third sky of King God Realm warrior under Aogu Duo's commander, who had lost an arm, was trying to bandage up with a pale face. He suddenly felt uneasy. Lifting up his head, he saw a peculiar flower covering a freak while flying toward him. He instinctively wanted to cry. However, the demonic flower engulfed him instantly. Crack crack. The noise of bones being chewed tingled people's scalp. Blood splashed when the demonic flower spat out pieces of bone. That warrior died on the spot. The flower became fresher and more vivid, and the face of the odd man had gained more flesh. However, his eyes were still closed. His team seemed to be very scared as they recognized something dangerous. Move. Move. Bai Tian shrilled. A warrior under his gaze reacted timely, backing off immediately. However, his speed couldn't be compared to the demonic flower's pursuit in the soul-confining platform. Nobody could do anything but watch him being swallowed. The demonic bone chewed his bones, killing him shortly. The demonic flower seemed not tired at all. Taking several seconds to digest, it moved again. For the time being, warriors of the three big forces screamed and cried, running disorderly in the soul-confining platform. Those people didn't know about the eccentric soul-confining platform. Some of them had accidentally stepped on the iron chains on the ground. Their blood and flesh were all drawn, leaving a withered, mushy skin bag on the icy cold ground. A man was lucky that the ice-cold flame had taken all the cold chi on the ice crystal platform. Otherwise, he would have been frozen and fragmented already. Warriors of the three powerful force screamed and cried terribly. They ran aimlessly, trying their best to avoid the demonic flower. However, it seemed like the demonic flower had eyes. After it had engulfed one victim, it would immediately target a new one. Although the soul-confining platform was large, the demonic flower was moving at breakneck speed. No matter how hard the warriors of the three powerful forces tried to scatter, one of them would always become the next victim. Seeing people constantly being swallowed, Aogu Duo, and the others had no solution. As they couldn't use powers Upanishad here, they could only run for their lives. Nevertheless, none of them dared to leave the soul-confining platform to the illusory formation out there. It seemed the dangers out there were much more lethal than the demonic flower in the soul-confining platform. The pirates didn't ridicule or laugh on the others' misfortune. They had experienced such painful things themselves after all. The disaster the three powerful forces were struck by this time seemed to be their future. After swallowing the warriors of the three big forces, the demonic flower became prettier, and the freak it covered looked plumper. People started to feel hopeless. Precursor Bai Tian, tell your people to come here. I will protect you guys. Considers that I'm paying back your favor of not killing Ka2or. The fire sea slit open a passage, which was enough for one person to get inside the circle. Bai Tian was surprised, looking at him from a far distance as a strange light flashed in his eyes. Bai Ru became excited. She didn't wait for her father's opinions, lunging directly towards the others. The distance between her and the demonic flower was pretty close. She was scared that she would become the next target. The girl didn't think much and just moved directly through the slit the fire sea had just made. The fire sea seethed violently. Its scorching energy covered the place, as if it could burn everything into ashes. However, when Bairu entered, that fire sea didn't have an anomaly. The passage was still open. Among the warriors of the three big forces, Bairu was the first person to enter the place of the pirates safely. Shiyang, what the heck are you doing? Barrett thundered indignantly. Russell, Jianong, and many pirate leaders were enraged, looking at him with cold and harsh faces. Shiyang frowned, speaking seriously. I owe Bai Tian a favor. I'm repaying him now. Do you have any problem with that? Pausing for a while, he gave a low shout. If you have a problem with that, get the F***ck out of here. Your grandpa here won't serve you. As soon as he finished, all the pirates shut their mouths. No one dared to utter a word. If they weren't in the soul confining platform and there was no demonic flower, the pirates would throw their rage at him for sure. However, in this place, he solely had all the pirates' lives in their hands. If he didn't feel pleased, he would expel the rebelling pirates out of his fire protection. Those pirates would then simply become delicious meals for that demonic flower. They all knew what would happen. Thus, although they were filled with rage, none of them dared to talk more. A warrior under Li Yufeng's command was fluttered as he was running madly to avoid the demonic flower. His frightened eyes brightened as if he had finally seen hope. He swayed to the fire slit. However, when his figure wormed through the fire slit, it immediately closed. His god body was covered with flame abruptly. People could smell the smoke of his god body being burned. Did I allow you to get in? Shiyang said faintly with his cold face. Except for Bai Tian's people, whoever dares to step in will die. Carthew and Zi Yarrow weren't in this crowd. They were delayed unknowingly. Thus, in this group, only Bai Tian had some relation with Shiyang. Besides Bai Tian, no matter it was Aogu Duo, Tuo Hai, or Monica, Li Yufeng or Fan He of the Nine-Star Chamber of Commerce, they were his enemies. Of course, he wouldn't show mercy. His shout had awakened the people of the three big forces. They had to jerk back, even though they wanted to jump into his protection a lot. Only Bai Tian's members got stirred up, their faces happy. Move, Bai Tian called. He hesitated for a little bit, but then he didn't mind whether he could enrage Fan He or not. Move to Shiyang's position. Allard and the others felt like they had gotten an amnesty on hearing him. They were so happy they almost cracked up, crazily moving towards the fire slit Shiyang had spared for them. They gathered with the pirates. However, they had maintained a distance with the pirates. They were cautious, afraid that the pirates would ambush them. Bai Tian didn't have many experts here, while the pirates were so many. As their soul altar was restrained, it wouldn't be a big problem if the pirates wanted to kill them. That was why they had to be very careful. Whoever dares to attack them without my permission, get out. Shiyang raked his cold eyes through the pirates. If you want to survive, stay put. Otherwise, don't blame me. No one dared to reply. Even Feng Ku had to quiet down. He understood that if they had a dispute with Shiyang here, they had only death awaiting them. Shortly, Bai Tian's warriors had entered the fire sea built by Shiyang. General Commander Bai Tian walked the last. Hesitating for a while, he clasped his fist towards Fan He. I'm sorry. I want to save my people. You guys manage yourself. Then, Bai Tian was the last one to enter the fire sea, standing with his warriors. Fan He, Li Yufeng, Tuo Hai, Monica, and Aogu Duo had a grimace, but they didn't say anything. Although Bai Tian wasn't loyal to his comrades, he wasn't to be blamed. If Shiyang agreed to give them a way to survive, they would also ignore the others to save their fellows. Although they felt irritated, they understood Bai Tian's trouble. They knew that what Bai Tian did was the wisest move for his people. Precursor Bai Tian, what happened in the illusory formation out there? Asked Shiyang all of a sudden. Bai Tian's face was bitter, but he relaxed a little bit. There are many strong beasts we have never known about before. They are too intimidating. They were so bloodthirsty, hunting us in the formation out there. Many of us were killed instantly. But, when we were there weren't any beast. How could you meet them? Shi Yang was surprised. Shaking his head, Bai Tian said, when we got there the first time, we didn't meet them either. But, when we got back to the illusory formation, not long after that, we found so many beasts there. Many of them are at the level 11. Perhaps, there exist beasts at level 12. Level 12? As strong as the ethereal god realm experts. Shi Yang was frightened. I didn't see them, but I heard a lot of intimidating roars, so it's possible. Anyway, I saw level 11 beasts with my own eyes. Those beasts aren't from the monster clan. They look hybrid. They have never existed in our raging flamestar area. They are so frightening. Bai Tian was still scared. That demonic flower. What happened? It wasn't there when we left. Just appeared. It got out of a broken stone stele. According to Jester, it's the dark prison demonic flower. Do you know about it? I'm not an alchemist, so I don't know it clearly. How about you, Allard? My level in refining pellets is limited, so I don't know much about it. I know the dark prison demonic flower. Standing outside the fire sea, Fan He, the president of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, screamed in fear, his eyes dark. If it's the dark prison demonic flower, I think, you should let us in. Otherwise, you guys shouldn't dream of having a chance to survive. Fan He said resolutely. Shi Yang frowned, and why should that be the case? As Fan He was the president of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, one of the highest existences in the raging flamestar area, of course, he knew something about the dark prison demonic flower. It wasn't beyond Shi Yang's estimation. While Shi Yang and Bai Tian were talking, they tried to make it loud so that the others could listen to them, which would help him understand the dark prison demonic flower better. He didn't think that it would work. The dark prison demonic flower is a thing of the God clan. Fan He stressed each word of his. Chapter 878, The Recoverer of the God Clan. Chapter 878, The Recoverer of the God Clan. Hearing that the dark prison demonic flower came from the God Clan, Shi Yang, Feng Ku, and the others discolored in fright. As the president of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce, Fan He was the greatest person alive in the raging flamestar area. It was normal for his knowledge to surpass Jester. Right now, he didn't need to lie or conceal this. It should be the truth. If the dark prison demonic flower came from the God Clan, had they built the 32 prisons here? A race that called themselves God consisted of the missionaries who had taught Powers Upanishad in the raging flamestar area. They used to live in glory in the Grace mainland. Among 32 prisoners here, there were 2 incipient God Realm warriors, 10 ethereal God Realm warriors, and 20 original God Realm warriors. If they could imprison these formidable existences, how strong were they? As the dark prison demonic flower was a possession of theirs, they were powerful, indeed. Please enlighten us, Jester pondered for a while and spoke up. He also spoke to Shi Yang and Feng Ku. I think we should listen to President Fan. Shi Yang frowned. He pondered for a while then nodded. Feng Ku didn't object although his face was dark and gloomy. However, Russell was still looking at Fan He with malicious intent. He seemed like he didn't want Fan He to talk more. In fact, he looked like he wanted that man to die. Russell's family used to be a branch of the 9-star Chamber of Commerce. The Fan family had uprooted them. Russell was the only one who managed to escape. He lived to take revenge. As long as he could see the Fan family get annihilated, he could give up everything, even the star map. What a pity that Russell couldn't voice his opinion in this group of pirates today. Although he was discontent, he calmed down. The dark prison demonic flower is an object that belongs to the God Clan. It's a peculiar thing that restores people who are wounded severely. The person that this demonic flower shrouds should be a God Clan's member who is hurt and needs to use the dark prison demonic flower to recover. Fan He gathered his thoughts while the demonic flower was still attacking and swallowing people. He explained uneasily. The demonic flower can absorb the blood chi and energy to give a tonic to the wounded warrior. You can see that whenever the demonic flower swallows a warrior, the God Clan man is restored a little bit. People nodded as if they had confirmed his explanation. This area is a massive prison. It is also an important ward which the God Clan used to heal their wounded members. Everybody knew that the God Clan was strong, but they didn't have a large population, and it's not easy for them to give birth. They couldn't afford to lose even one warrior. They did anything to protect and lengthen the bloodline of the God Clan. He paused for a while, then continued, "This place is a magical place they used to preserve their members. They captured the warriors of other races to absorb their energy and heal their wounded members. The stronger the prisoners were, the more blood chi and energy they had. They would be a significant support for the restoration of the God Clan. The warrior shrouded by that demonic flower is one of them. He uses the flower to absorb flesh and blood to recover himself. However, those he had taken in were just at the King God realm. Their limited power isn't enough to wake him up and help him revolve his soul altar. Once he has absorbed enough energy to open his eyes, he will be very intimidating. It's hard to guess which realm that one has. If he is at the ethereal God realm, I'm sure we are all doomed. We can't dodge this. Thus, if you ignore us, the demonic flower will eventually swallow us all and the warrior wakes up, your death will come. I'm sure this forbidden land doesn't have only that recoverer. Once he has recovered, he will use us to bring back his clansmen. You can see that we will all be meals of that dark prison demonic flower." His voice was hurried as he saw that the demonic flower still eating people, his face harsh and cold. Shi Yang and Feng Ku listened to him. They all grimaced. The God Clan, the race that called themselves God, had tried everything for the well-being of their clan. To preserve their bloodline, they didn't hesitate to capture warriors and make them their meals to recover their wounded clansmen. How cruel were they to do such things? Each of the prisoners here was affected by the cold chi of the ice crystal platform. Their soul altars were restrained and the chains had continually taken their blood, flesh, and energy. The God Clan had used the others' intensive pain to recover their clansmen. This race wasn't nice. It was an extremely selfish race. The pirates all kept silent, their faces petrified. At this moment, they didn't know what to say. To the disaster the three big forces were enduring, they didn't ridicule or feel pleasure over their misfortune. They seemed to have the same goal now. The dark prison demonic flower was still engulfing warriors of the three big forces. At this rate, the warriors of the three big forces would shortly become the raw meals for the demonic flower to restore that God Clan man. Because of the heaven flame fire protection, the demonic flower hadn't attacked them yet. However, when the God Clan expert opens his eyes and restores his soul altar, only God knows if the heaven flame fire sea will be strong enough to protect them. The dark prison demonic flower is cruel and eccentric. It's immune to almost all kinds of powers Upanishad. It's only afraid of the fiery flame. Your heaven flame is what it fears the most. Seeing Shi Yang have no reaction, he darkened his face and continued talking. Although the flower is afraid of the heaven flames, it doesn't mean that the warrior that it protects is the same. When he is fully restored, I don't think you can hide in there. At that moment, all the pirates will become food for that damn demonic flower. Consider yourself whether you want to do something or not. The pirates shivered inwardly. They were so uneasy. It was clear to them that he didn't fabricate anything. In this given circumstance, he had no reason to lie. What do you think? Feng Ku contemplated for a while before turning to Shi Yang. Shi Yang was the owner of the heaven flame. He only used his power to protect everybody in this soul-confining platform. Before they could leave this place, Shi Yang was the soul of the pirates. He had real power that could determine people's fate. He now surpassed Feng Ku's influence. The other pirates were looking at Shi Yang, waiting for his decision. Shi Yang, consider the whole picture. Or else, no one will be able to escape this place. Bai Tian advised him, it only benefits that God Clan warrior if the demonic flower continues to swallow these warriors. After that, it will attack you guys too. Don't be stubborn. If the demonic flower is afraid of the fiery flame, I will destroy it. Shi Yang looked calm in the bright eyes of the people. He gave a faint smile. As soon as he finished, a scorching flame shot out from the fire sea. It transformed in the air, turning into a giant flaming red-orange bird. Dazzling red wings opened. People could even hear the bird singing. It flew toward the demonic flower, which was still hunting for prey. Vermilion bird true flame. This flame was generated by a wisp of the original soul of the vermilion bird, one of the 4 holy beasts. It had a clear intelligence. The flaming bird spread its wings in the air, attacking the demonic flower instantly. The radiant red-orange flaming curve moved like a sickle, creating a thick mesh net, snatching and covering the demonic flower, which was attacking people everywhere. Swish, swish, swish. The vermilion flame moved like a ribbon, which attracted people's eyes. The vermilion bird true flame turned into the true form of the holy bird, accompanied by the archaic aura of the bird itself. The will of the bird was released silently, merging with the flame and sending fire everywhere. People's halted soul altars still echoed the holy beast vermilion bird, which had run directly into their souls, giving them its vibes. As the dark prison demonic flower was covered by the flame, the crystal-clear petals resounded the cracking sound. It was forced to stop moving. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The flames shot out rapidly, sending many flames toward the target. The demonic flower sounded like the burning of fried wood. Many warriors of the 3 big forces were running helter-skelter to dodge the flower. Seeing the flower being restrained for a moment, they exhaled in relief. The fear in their eyes was reduced. The blooming petals of the demonic flower slowly closed in the middle of the fire sea. The flower resized as its petals closed towards the center of the flower. Shortly after, the one who was shrouded by the demonic flower was covered entirely, exposing nothing. The dark prison demonic flower shrunk. It maintained a defensive position as if it had intelligence. In the explosion of the furious flame, the demonic became crystal clear and dazzling. Glorious light radiated from its petals, adorning the flower to the acme. At this moment, it was much more beautiful than the most beautiful flower in the world. Crack, crack, crack. Something was exploding inside the flower. The dark prison demonic flower shrank. As it recognized the danger, it soared up from the fire sea, fleeing. It disappeared into the nearest stone stele in just a blink. The dark prison demonic flower turned into a drawing of a fresh flower. It seemed to be printed on the stone stele, which now acted as a barrier that shielded the demonic flower from the flame. Staying inside that stele, it was just a drawing without a real entity. The vermilion bird true flame couldn't do anything. Does the demonic flower have the intellect, or is that man controlling the flower? Shi Yang was surprised. He couldn't help but turn to Fan He and raised his voice to ask. That man and the demonic flower are fused. His soul consciousness is connected to the flower. The flower's movement can be attributed to its own mind or the man's instinct. I'm not sure. Fan He shook his head. My knowledge of this clan is limited. I don't know everything about them. If he has restored his consciousness, I think our problem hasn't been solved yet. Shi Yang's face was serious as he felt uneasy. Shortly after his words, a strange commotion happened at the stone stele the demonic flower was hiding. The chain attached to the stone stele, which used to lie still on the ground, suddenly straightened. A halo was flashing on the chain as it started to move like a free arm. It tied 3 warriors of the 3 big forces, who were standing nearest to the stele. Within 3 breaths, it had withdrawn all the blood, flesh and chi of those 3 victims, leaving only the grey skin bags on the ground. People could only see what happened and their scalps felt very numb. Chapter 879, The Eccentric Smiling Face in the Stone Stele. Chapter 879, The Eccentric Smiling Face in the Stone Stele. 3 warriors captured by the iron chain died on the spot. One of them was Li Yufeng's butler, an expert at the first sky of original God realm. He didn't even have time to react. The chain had absorbed all of their blood, flesh, and chi, leaving just a layer of grey skin sloppily on the ice ground. The dead atmosphere hovered in this area. The pirates and the warriors of the 3 big forces recognized the lethal attack. Their hearts were pounding fast. This feeling came from deep inside their souls, as if a venomous snake was gazing at them, attempting to bite them in any minute. No one knew what to do. Instinctively, warriors of the three big forces started to move towards Shiyang. They couldn't explain why, but they felt safer when they were close to Shiyang's fire sea. However, Shiyang, the person that people counted on at this moment, was not happy with that. The anxiety in his soul became more vehement. His eyes gazed at that stone stele. There were two big drawings of demonic flowers on the stone stele. One of them was so fresh and lively that they could tell its real colors. That demonic flower was the one absorbing a lot of warriors and disappearing into the stone tablet. At this moment, a vague face appeared in the center of the flower. It became clearer and people could see that it was a peculiarly handsome face. Although the eyes of this face were closed, it gave people a feeling that the body of this face could jump out of the stone stele at any moment. Crack, crack, crack. The ice crystal platforms exploded one by one in the soul confining platform. Pieces of ice shot out like meteors that showered everywhere. The ice crystals hit many warriors. Their god bodies got frozen and cracked immediately. This was the remaining power of the ice crystal after it was absorbed. Those ice sculptures would explode into ice that scattered on the ground. Shiyang didn't care about the commotion that the ice crystal platforms brought. His eyes still gazed at that stone stele. He was sure that he saw the eyebrows of that handsome face twitch when the ice crystal platforms exploded. Shiyang was scared as he immediately got that the God Clan recoverer within that stone tablet was at the edge of his consciousness awakening. He had absorbed so many flesh bodies, including an original God Realm warrior. This man had finally gathered his scattering consciousness. The ice crystal platform's explosions had killed 10 more warriors of the three big forces. It also triggered some anomalies. Roar. Grr. The wild roars of the savage beasts came from the illusory formation out there. It seemed that the beasts had been totally enraged, dashing toward the soul-confining platform. Their ferocious auras surged, rolling toward the warriors like a tornado. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Furious explosions echoed from the soul-confining platform as if the beasts were barging into the areas that were invisible. The massive stone steles trembled as if they were about to fall. The handsome face in the stone stele quivered, his eyebrow arching. Although his eyes were still closed, he seemed to give a fiendish, content grin. Rattle, rattle, rattle. The chains connected to the steles were activated. They lively moved like the flood dragons flying inside the soul-confining platform. There were 32 prisons with stone steles, and each stele was connected to an iron chain. 20 prisons each had 11 steles, another 10 prisons each had 12 stone steles, and another 2 prisons each had 13 steles. In total, there were 336 stone steles together with the same number of iron chains. All of these chains were now the flood dragons, turning into the long hooks that could take the souls away in the soul-confining platform. Each corner of the soul-confining platform was now an extremely hazardous area. No inch of space could dodge the flying iron chains. In one of those the stone steles, the vague handsome face smiled with closed eyes. It looked even more freakishly evil. The screeching arose unceasingly. In seconds, more than 10 warriors were killed by the chains. Their flesh, blood, and energy had been taken in through the iron chains, pouring into the openings of the demonic flower on each stone stele. After each of the demonic flowers on the steles had absorbed blood and flesh, they became fresher and livelier. They looked real as if they were about to detach from the stone tablet at any moment. The pirates gathering with Shi Yang bore their greatest loss as half of the dead warriors came from his team. The fire sea created by the earth flame couldn't stop the iron chains. And the flame had burned the chains, making them the red-hot irons, which increased their lethality. Once a chain touched the pirates, it immediately burned and melted the pirates' god body. Everybody was scared out of their wits. The ferocious beasts were still bumping into the soul-confining platform as if they wanted to crush the entire place with the deep bone grudge. Inside the soul-confining platform, the chains remained merciless, taking lives away. They made the members of the three big forces and the pirates their raw food. Most of those poor warriors of the raging Flamestar area were at the King God Realm and the original God Realm. Because of their restrained soul altars, they couldn't use powers Upanishad. They had become vulnerable targets. They were killed continually without any bit of power to resist. Scatter. Move. Don't gather in the same place. Ku reacted first, shouting. Disperse immediately. The pirates were gathered at the same place where dozens of iron chains were attacking. Those chains were burned by the earth flame, becoming more intimidating, red-hot chains. If people gathered, it would make it more difficult to dodge those chains. When the chains swept over, pirates collided with each other and died. They didn't have enough room to avoid the burning chains. At the same time, warriors of the three powerful forces had been scattering earlier, so they didn't bear much loss. Warriors with profound realms could dodge the chains with their god-body physical strength. Russell, Barrett, and Jianong knew that gathering in the same place will only increase the loss of lives. They shouted at their pirates, asking them to scatter. All of a sudden, all pirates, who had desperately wanted to stay close to Shiyang, had run away, not daring to linger. A few people in Ka Tuor's team and Feng Rao still stayed together with Shiyang. Shiyang had retrieved the immense fire sea by the earth flame. Now it was hovering above his shoulder. Those iron chains are tough. I need several days to melt them down. But several days is enough for them to kill all of the people here. Shiyang nodded, his face heavy. I understand. Things created by the God Clan can't be melted down that easily. It has nothing to do with your abilities. The vermilion bird true flame also returned. That demonic flower is really tough. If I use all of my power to burn it, I would need half a month to melt it all. But now, I can't do anything because it's hiding in the stone tablet. I don't know what kind of materials those things are made of, but they are immune to fire. It seems like they were made to protect the demonic flowers as if they knew fire is its greatest weakness. Staying in there, I can't burn the flowers into ashes. The God Clan deemed themselves the most perfect clan, not only because of their formidable fighting competences but also because of their excellent and immense wisdom. When they built this forbidden land, they had thought of every possibility. The purposes of the stone steles, the demonic flower, and the layout of this place, everything had been planned and designed carefully. The others couldn't just simply destroy their achievements. If they could destroy the formation that they had spent thousands of years or even tens of thousands of years to build so easily, wouldn't it be humiliating to the God Clan? At this moment, Shiyang suddenly had a great admiration for that precursor. The precursor cultivated chaotic power Upanishad and had forcefully escaped his imprisonment. He seemed to have beaten the easygoing king of heaven of the God Clan. It was just a wisp of his energy remnant, but it was enough to tie down the entire easygoing king of heaven hall. Shiyang couldn't even imagine such formidable powers. Jester had guessed that he could be at the incipient god realm. He must be one of the courty Jesk of 8. And if it was true, how strong was the owner of the blood vein ring? Thoughts flashed through his head like electricity. Shiyang took a deep breath as he suddenly realized that he seemed to bear some heavy responsibility. One of the members of the Courtage of 8 used to be confined here by the God Clan. He was an unimaginably strong expert. Under the special imprisoning conditions, he had escaped and created a disaster, which had wounded or even killed the easygoing king of heaven of the God Clan. From this point of view, the master of the blood vein ring should be on the opposite side of the race that deemed themselves the God Clan. So as the heir of the blood vein ring, the meaning of my existence is to resist the God Clan? Do I live to destroy the entire God Clan? Shiyang thought. Shiyang. Ku shouted in fright from a far distance. Check the star map. We must leave now. We can't stay longer. He paused then shouted again. Shiyang cultivates star power Upanishad. Only when he uses the star map can give us a way to survive. He said these words to the three powerful forces. While speaking, Ku threw the star map to Shiyang from a far distance. Russell, Barrett, Jianong, and Jester also looked at him worriedly from another corner. Fan he studied him. The pirates and the warriors of the three big forces were all being massacred by the iron chains in the soul confining platform. They had become sacrificial sheep. Their window to survive got narrower as time went on. The three big forces had proven that the savage beasts in the illusory formation out there were one level more dangerous than in this place. If they returned to the illusory formation, they would be killed even faster than here. The star map was thrown across space to Shi Yang. However, the warriors of the three big forces, who came here for the star map, just stood and stared. None of them tried to snatch it. Let him catch the star map. Fan He gave a low shout, his eyes gloomy. The warriors of the three big forces didn't answer. They silently agreed to let Shi Yang catch the star map. Although they were trying their best to dodge the chains, they still kept their eyes on the star map. The star map made of undying wood moved in the air towards Shi Yang. My soul altar is restrained. I can't use the star energy. Even if you give me the star map, I can't find the way out. Shi Yang forced a smile. Looking at the star map, which was flying toward him, he seemed to not want to catch it. Because he knew he had no solution. You can, a thought was sent to him from the blood vein ring. It was the voice of the ring spirit. I have come to give you a helping hand. Chapter 880, Summon the Divine Sword. Chapter 880, Summon the Divine Sword. I have come to lend a helping hand. The blood vein ring sent him an affirmative message. I can free you from the constraint in this place for 30 seconds. You can use your power Upanishad to summon the divine sword and slash all the stone tablets here. Shi Yang's eyes brightened while a storm swirled inside his mind. He didn't dare to believe it. I can resist for 30 seconds only. Then, my power will run out. If you can't summon the divine sword, the remaining evil of the God clan will kill you all. Summoning the divine sword from so far away within 30 seconds. You evaluate me highly, Shi Yang beamed a forced smile. I believe you can. You've mastered space power and star power as well. You own the star map now. It's not much struggle to summon the divine sword. The star map can activate your star energy. In just a blink, it will show you the shortest route. You just need to tear a space slit. The divine sword isn't an entity. Once you can form this spiritual bridge with it, you don't need to consume energy then. It will proactively fly to you, explained the blood vein ring. Can the divine sword break the steelies in this place? Piece of cake. Shi Yang was astounded. He hesitated for a while then said, I will give it a try. If it doesn't work, we just can say we have short lives. You can, the blood vein ring confirmed for the second time. While Shi Yang and the blood vein ring were talking, more and more people died in the soul-confining platform by the soul-taking iron chains. The rumbling roars and growls outside the illusory formation and the barging force by the savage beasts became more terrifying. Feng Ku, Fan He, and the others were worried as if they had a flame in their hearts. Since their powers were restrained, they could only see their subordinates getting killed. They had witnessed the iron chains coil around their fellows, taking their blood and flesh away. Whether they were the strong warriors of the three big forces or the pirates, they were all trying to dodge the iron chains moving around. Sometimes they peeked at Shi Yang with longing eyes, as they were all waiting for his next actions. In people's hearts, Shi Yang had become their only hope. They thought that only his realm and power could release them from the restraint and bring them out of the soul-confining platform. At this moment, the opposite parties shared the same enemies. They now united to reach the same goal. Do it now. Shi Yang sent his thought, trying to prepare himself. I'm ready. The star map slowly fell into his palm. Starlight shot out like raindrops gathering in his palm, giving him a cool and fresh feeling. The blood vein ring didn't send him messages anymore. Shortly after, a rainbow light shot out from the ring, which seemed to be able to ignore all kinds of rules of powers Upanishad as it ripped through all kind of restrictions. The rainbow light covered his entire body. Very quickly, all pure energies in his body were freed from the stagnant condition. The restrained soul altar slowly untangled itself from the ropes that had tied it down, starting to revolve. The powers Upanishad now appeared clearly in his head. The blood vein ring released the magical energy, which had temporarily cut off all of his restrictions. This damn place couldn't control him anymore as his soul altar spun as usual. Without a bit of hesitation, Shi Yang knew that the blood vein ring was using its scarce remaining energy to give him half a minute. In this chaotic situation, Shi Yang suddenly sat down cross-legged, his face as calm as water. Starlight bloomed gloriously around his body, while the countless starlight dots gathered around the star map, the most magnificent star. A star chart formed above his head. PFFF. Immortal demon blood in his body was urged due to a thought in his head. The immortal demon blood in his body was trying to contact the Sky Destroyer divine sword in a faraway area. An electric flash occurred. A slit cracked in his chest. Blood flew out like lightning through that slit. The immortal demon blood and Shi Yang had interlinked, moving through layers of spaces at a speed that normal people could never imagine, heading towards the Grace mainland. Bang! The sound echoed clearly in his head as if the demon blood had barged into something metal. Deep in the perpetual night forest, Grace mainland. The utmost 8 purgatories city stood firm in earth and heaven. Inside the luxuriant forest, this city was magnificently grand with many warriors dwelling. At this moment, the Grace mainland had run out of energy. Many humans, monsters, and pagans were living together in harmony. They didn't dispute or battle against each other anymore. The glorious silver utmost 8 purgatory city stayed inside the perpetual night forest as if it was the master of the entire forest that was the home of the experts of human clan, dark demonic clan, winged clan, and monster clan. As earth and heaven energy were running out, they were struggling here to find a way to survive. Today, Yang Tian Emperor took a team to journey somewhere, leaving the city. A silver halo bloomed from the beautiful city wall. The entire utmost 8 purgatory city was filled with silver light. The thick mist that hovered in the perpetual night forest for so many years was torn in just a blink. The starry sky appeared again. Marvelous starlight dots that looked like diamonds shone above their heads. Those starlight dots suddenly enlarged and approached them. A star area hung above the edge of the starry sea. It became outstandingly glorious as if it was about to fall into the utmost 8 purgatory city. The experts of the clans including Yant Tian Emperor, Cao Qiu Dao, Long Zhu, Yun Hao, and Di Shan were scared unknowingly, looking at the sky. A wisp of blood scent diffused from the utmost 8 purgatory city. The city walls trembled as if they were about to burst off. In the center of the city where the formation eye lies, a divine sword soared up into the sky like a dragon flying out of the water. It turned into a blood light running deep into the galaxy. It flashed then disappeared. Boom boom. The utmost 8 purgatories city suddenly shook. The rumbling noise rose up to the sky. Earth and heaven energy of the Grace mainland was disordered. Starlight from outer space fell endlessly into the perpetual night forest. The galaxy floating at the horizon had a dazzling spot, which made people's souls flicker with its endless mysteries. Barriers, restrictions, and formations of the utmost 8 purgatory city became ineffective when the divine sword had torn the sky and disappeared. The massive city was trembling grumblingly for a while before it resumed its normal state. As Yang Tian Emperor was about to go out, he immediately sent his call. Shortly after, Cao Qiu Dao, Long Zhu, Yun Hao, Di Shan, Yi Tian Mo, and Yu Ru gathered, their faces extremely astounded. The divine sword flew away. What kind of signal was that? Cao Qiu Dao was frightened. Is it true that some mighty power wants us all to die? Spiritual qi of the continent is running out. Within 100 years, we won't have a beam of energy left that we can use. Today, the divine sword left us. Is it a sign that we have to bury our bodies here? Shi Yang had arranged that divine sword there. He has a relationship to that sword. Did he just summon it? Long Zhu said uncertainly, even though he had a wide knowledge. His voice seemed hesitant. It's impossible. Shi Yang and the top experts of the Demon Clan, the Corpse Clan, and the Ghostmark Clan have gone missing for dozens of years. They perhaps might have died as well. How could he summon the divine sword? Yun Hao shook his head, giving miserable smiles. He hasn't fallen yet. Yang Tian Emperor's eyes sparkled. He lives well. I'm sure. Everybody was surprised. Recently, I managed to smell a faint blood scent. It was his immortal blood. Old Long is correct. It's him who summoned the divine sword. People had their eyes brightened as they were very perplexed. If he is still alive, why doesn't he return to the Grace mainland? Why did he have to summon the divine sword? Cao Qiu Dao couldn't make sense of this reasoning. I don't know, Yang Tian Emperor sighed. I hope he could find a solution. We can't endure this for a long time. Headmaster Yang, you're going to break through to the King God realm, right? Unfortunately, earth and heaven energy in this place isn't enough to help you. Longzhu admired him. Headmaster Yang is a genius. You've mastered desperate power. During this time, while people are in a despair, your realm improves, day by day. Your realm's stability should have reached the King God realm's level already, I supposed. As long as you have enough supply power, you will have an earth-shaking transformation. Just one more step and you can reach the peak. Our desperate situation is the best for your realm improvement. Anyway, you just don't have enough luck now. After dozens of years, a relatively short period, Yang Tian Emperor had broken through the true God realm and was still progressing well. His speed could be deemed magical. The Grace mainland now had a serious shortage of earth and heaven energy. Everybody fell into crisis and despair. Under the erosive torture of despair, Yang Tian Emperor had comprehended the truth of his power in such circumstances. His realm had been increasing fast, beyond people's imagination. What a pity that earth and heaven energy had become weaker day after day. Although his realm was increasing, he got stuck at the true God realm. He was held back at the threshold because of the shortage of earth and heaven energy. I think that we won't wait for a long time. Shi Yang will be back soon. Yang Tian Emperor smiled. Even though they were sinking deep into a hopeless situation, he still had hope, talking calmly. What we need to do is to live well. Don't let defeat hold yourself back. Shi Yang will be back one day. What if he can't come back? The Grace mainland isn't the ideal place to survive now. If he comes back here, he will be restrained. Could he find a paradise for us? Yun Hao beamed a forced smile. Yeah, I believe he can return. The magical energy in that immortal blood should be at the King God realm. It's even more than what I've known so far. In other words, at this moment, Shi Yang should be at a relatively high level of the King God realm. Yang Tian Emperor made a guess. After he finished, everybody was startled as they were extremely shocked. Earth and heaven energy of the Grace mainland isn't enough to create the high existence at King God realm. So I guess Shi Yang has encountered a good chance in outer space. He must have found a new foothold. Yang Tian Emperor grinned. We just need to wait for him. Don't worry. We will escape this imprisonment. Moreover, I believe that it won't be too long. High-level King God realm. Longzhu closed his eyes, speaking as if he was dreaming. I really want to see Shi Yang at such a level. I want to see how strong he has become. Seems like my decision that year wasn't wrong. I just want to leave this damn place, expressed Yun Hao. People now had hope. Yang Tian Emperor had stirred up their fighting spirit. Their wills were strengthened again. Chapter 881, Awaken. Chapter 881, Awaken. Soul confining platform. The iron chains flew like flood dragons, killing warriors of the three big forces and the pirates and extracting their energy, blood, and flesh to pour into the stone steelies. One of those stone steelies held a male figure. His attractive face had closed eyes and an icy cold, fiendish grin. He looked as if he was going to open his eyes at any moment and jump out of the steely. The crisis got worse and despair extended everywhere. Whether it was the pirates or the warriors of the three big forces, they were all anxious as they didn't know what to do in this situation. When their uneasiness was at its peak, a space slit opened in front of Shi Yang and a divine sword, which came from an unknown area far away, flew out of the slit and fell into his hand. Strike. The blood-red halo was retrieved. The power released by the blood vein ring faded away like a low tide, leaving nothing behind. The blood vein ring sank into silence for the second time. It had consumed so much of energy that it couldn't restore at that moment. The strange condition that restrained the soul altar had affected Shi Yang again. His soul altar and powers in his body became sluggish. However, Shi Yang had grabbed the Sky Destroyer divine sword tightly. A strange, evil energy instantly seeped into Shi Yang's body through the divine sword in his hand. It connected negative energy in his acupuncture points instantly. The garnet eyes opened on the Sky Destroyer divine sword. They looked so malignant, as if they were the eyes of demons observing all the creatures in this world, choosing their targets. Crack, crack, crack. The iron chains were flying around like dragons and snakes. They brutally attacked people. Holding the divine sword in his hand, Shi Yang's face was cold like ice. His eyes became garnet as a ruthless, intimidating aura arose around his body, connecting to the Sky Destroyer divine sword magically. His wrist made a move. A red light bloomed from the blood-red eyes on the sword. The divine sword slashed the air like it was the sharpest blade that nothing could resist. Slice. An iron chain broke. Pieces of the iron chain flew everywhere while the 100-meter-tall stone stele connected to that chain shook badly. Shi Yang's red eyes sparkled as his icy cold eyes gazed at that stone stele. Swish. Light flashed. Holding the divine sword in his hand, he still had strong powers even though he couldn't circulate essence chi and star energy in his body. The divine sword aimed and slashed down on that stone tablet. Rumble, rumble, rumble. It was as if the sky was being torn apart. The furious energy shot into the air. 2/3 of the eyes of the Sky Destroyer opened. It looked like a several 100-meter-long garnet ribbon or a blood-red thunderbolt that exploded grumblingly. Boom, boom. The 100-meter stone stele got hit and exploded instantly, sending crushed stones everywhere. A dark prison demonic flower was revealed in the middle of the stone tablet. It covered a bony, withered god clan man. He seemed to receive just a little bit energy, but his consciousness hadn't been restored yet. Swoosh. The heaven flames covered it in a blink, burning it madly. Everybody was fluttered. Whether it was Feng Ku and his pirates, or Fan He, Bai Tian, and Li Yufeng with their warriors of the three big forces, all were baffled. While people's soul altars were restrained, they couldn't urge their powers. That stone stele was something that the god clan had refined. Even if they still had their powers, they couldn't destroy it easily. However, Shi Yang, who also had his soul altar restrained, managed to burst off a stone stele with only a sword. How strong was he? Everybody suddenly shivered. However, this stunning operation had just started. Shi Yang's blood-red eyes shot out an evil light. His face was cold and ruthless. With the sword in his hand, he moved like a shuttle between the chains covering the sky. His arm swung continually, hacking and slashing. Iron chains exploded directly when he passed by them. The 100-meter stone steles looked so weak under the destruction that his divine sword brought. They broke and exploded, sending crushed stones everywhere. Dark prison demonic flowers were revealed after the stone steles broke. The heaven flames covered them in a blink of an eye, leaving no time or space for the demonic flower to find a new host. The two Yang-class heaven flames, the earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame, had raised a scorching fire sea to burn down the demonic flowers. Crack, crack, crack. Stone steles burst off. Shi Yang gazed at a certain direction, walking slowly towards it. The handsome face with the icy, malevolent grin in the stone stele had disappeared. Shi Yang's corner of his mouth was tense as he knew this wasn't a good sign. The attractive face in the stone stele was wiggling, trying to escape. The divine sword moved like a gust of wind, dragging a blood-red thunderbolt ribbon several 100 meters. It could slash down everything and cross the sky as if it wanted to halve the entire sky. Swish, swish, swish. The bloodlight diffused like the thick blood chi with a fresh blood scent that tingled people's scalps. Crack, crack, crack. That stone stele cracked on its initiative. The demonic flower that had sought shelter in the stone stele was revealed for the second time. The god clan wounded man hiding in the demonic flower started to move unceasingly. Under the sky with so many iron chains crossing by, the demonic flower rapidly swallowed the warrior's flesh body. Shi Yang wore a cold and harsh face. He didn't try to chase after it or get distracted. His mind was as firm as iron and stone. He continued to destroy the stone tablets, forcing the dark prison demonic flower and the wounded warriors hiding within to get out. After they got out of the stone steles, they couldn't avoid the heaven flames. Only the first dark prison demonic flower had used its powers to get out proactively. The God Clan man with clear facial features had enough energy to move freely under the cover of the heaven flames. Shi Yang didn't mind that man. Shi Yang remembered what the blood vein ring had advised him. His mind was placid enough to know that the stone steles were the formation eye of the Forbidden Land, the roots of this formation. He had to destroy them all. When all the stone steles were broken, the Forbidden Land that restrained Soul Altar would lose its most magical effect. At that moment, whether they were the warriors of the three big forces or the pirates, they would restore their powers. They would be able to use the abilities to protect themselves. This goal was clear enough. Shi Yang didn't let his mind distract him because of other things. At the same time, he didn't care about the dark prison demonic flower swallowing more pirates and warriors of the three big forces. He soared through the sky between the iron chains to break more stone steles. It was unknown what level the Sky Destroyer was. However, it could break the stone steles that the heaven flames couldn't burn down. As the eye of the formation, those stone steles had been refined well and were very tough. Shi Yang felt a little strange seeing the stone stele break so easily under the divine sword. No matter how rigid the stone tablets were, once Shi Yang used the divine sword to attack them, they broke off immediately. Shortly after, many 100-meter-tall stone steles had exploded into crushed stones. The experts in the soul-confining platform felt their soul altar's restrictions loosen. They were baffled, but they understood what happened immediately, their face surprised and happy. They recognized that what Shi Yang was destroying was the root of this formation. As long as those stone steles all broke, the power that had bound them would disappear completely. When they could activate their powers Upanishad, they wouldn't let the others trespass them anymore. They would have the powers to battle. Those people were the elite force of the raging Flamestar area. When their powers weren't restrained anymore, the powers they could use would bring positive results. Shi Yang had put down his prejudice as he knew that only if everybody could heal and restore themselves, and Feng Ku, Fan He, Aogu Duo, and Li Yu Feng could survive this danger, he would be able to protect himself in the soul-confining platform, and not become a fresh meal of the God Clan. Mad destruction. More than 300 stone steles exploded one by one under his full-power attack. Whenever a stone tablet exploded, a dark prison demonic flower would be revealed. The heaven flames would flood in, swallowing the demonic flower and burning it. The only demonic flower that could escape the heaven flame with the wounded warrior of the God Clan became uneasy. The man looked very anxious. The demonic flower continued to engulf the warriors. The chewing sounds of the flower became more hurried. It seemed like the wounded God Clan man had come to the critical moment to restore himself. In the next minute, he would recover his soul altar. As soon as Shi Yang had come to the last prison to break those last stone steles, the handsome man shrouded by the demonic flower had finally opened his closed eyes. His eyes shot out fierce light columns. Some pirates were pierced through shortly. They died at their spots. Many sharp and intimidating power Upanishad rippled at the same time from that God Clan warrior. Everybody was frightened. They couldn't help but look at that man. Metal, gravity, wind, thunderbolt, and light shot out from his body. This wasn't something that the warriors in the raging Flamestar area could know. This man didn't cultivate just one power Upanishad. He had cultivated many at the same time. He seemed to be able to use all of them perfectly and smoothly. Divine light bloomed from the eyes of the wounded warriors of the God Clan. It recovered and revealed a pair of heartless, icy cold, dark brown eyes with thick and stubborn intentions. Crack, crack, crack. The demonic flower shrouding his god body immediately turned into beautiful, dazzling armor. Silver spikes jutted out like sharp sabers with the magical effects of the metal power Upanishad. They seemed to be able to pierce through everything. This God Clan man swept his eyes through the area. When he got to Shi Yang, he halted, letting out a low shout. Thunderbolt flashed then disappeared. Lightning strikes wound around his body as he glided above people's heads like an electric dragon towards Shi Yang. Break those stone steles. Quickly. People shouted and screamed ear-piercingly, urging Shi Yang to solve the soul altar restriction effect of the soul-confining platform. Feng Ku and Fan He shouted crazily, their eyes gazing at Shi Yang. They all knew that this God Clan man was formidable. At the moment, he showed off his 5 powers Upanishad and turned their understanding of the power Upanishad upside down. This man's powers weren't restrained in this soul-confining platform. Could Shi Yang match him as his opponent? If only the soul-confining platform was shattered completely and lost its soul-binding power. When they restored their powers, they could join hands to resist that man and find a way to survive. They could only scream in fear and watch, unable to help Shi Yang. They hoped that Shi Yang could give them the ultimate surprise after the many miracles he had created. The electric dragon soared rapidly. Many different kinds of powers Upanishad had created god domains, which slowly expanded. Shi Yang's soul altar felt an extreme pain as if a spear had just stabbed him. He couldn't move. His god body cracked and started to explode. Blood splashed like rain. Drops of blood sprayed on the divine sword. The closed blood-red eyes on the divine sword suddenly trembled. Chapter 882, Thunderbolt Divine Light. Chapter 882, Thunderbolt Divine Light. Swish swish swish. As Shi Yang's blood splashed, the closed eyes on the divine sword opened one after another. Extremely malignant powers shot out aimlessly from the divine sword. Negative energy in Shi Yang's acupuncture points overflowed into the sword uncontrollably. The divine sword absorbed a massive amount of blood and then released a tremendous energy fluctuation. Swoosh! The sword was like a 100-meter blood-red ribbon shooting out in a blink. The sharp blood chi was so terrifying that it could cut off any kind of creature. The God Clan man turned into an electric dragon. However, his god domain created by 5 powers Upanishad including metal, gravity, wind, thunderbolt, and light, couldn't control Shi Yang's god body anymore. The soul-confining platform hadn't all exploded yet, but the power that restrained Shi Yang's soul altar had been torn by the power of the divine sword. Boom boom boom! The remaining 100-meter stone steles exploded when his wrist moved, sweeping the 1,000-meter-long bloodlight that was generated by the divine sword through the steles. Blocks of stone and crushed debris scattered everywhere. Earth-shaking shockwaves expanded from the soul-confining platform. All iron chains connected to the stone steles broke. Some kind of confining layer in this area had been cut off. All the pirates and warriors of the 3 big forces found that their soul altars were no longer controlled anymore. All of their powers had been restored. Roar! Beasts roaring and howling echoed like collapsing mountains as they barged into the soul-confining platform crazily with grudges. As Fan he was free from the restraint, he pulled himself together, and the confidence of a tyrannical overlord had come back to him immediately. The corner of his mouth was stiff and cold. Fan his eyes rolled, shouting, "Kill the pagan first." His eyes glued to that God Clan man. Brutal light radiated gloriously as he urged his power Upanishad. He was now like a gold spear. Gold light emitted from his god body, moving like an outer space meteor and aiming at that God Clan man. Simultaneously, Aogu duo, Li Yufeng, Bai Tian, Tuor Hai, Monica, and Feng Ku had put aside their resentment, urging their powers Upanishad. With their magical soul control, their powers were all earth-shaking. Instantly, a strange phenomenon occurred in the sky above the soul-confining platform. The thunderbolt moved like giant dragons. Tornadoes rose up to the sky. An ice cage pressed down while icicles and ice sabers shot out. Gravity increased unceasingly. A sea of fire expanded. Earth power rose and rolled the crushed stone and sand, covering the entire sky. All went towards the man of the God Clan. Shi Yang could relax now since the pressure he had was now shared with other experts. Boom boom. Rumble rumble. The tremor was strong. It was as if it could destroy the whole place, rumbling the soul-confining platform. Different powers Upanishad with tremendous energy fluctuations pounded on the God Clan man. Experts of the raging Flamestar area stormed into the soul-confining platform. They temporarily put aside their prejudice, considering that the God Clan warrior was their archenemy. They all used their best powers Upanishad to attack him. Boom boom boom. The soul-confining platform exploded, shattering from the center. A light circle that could destroy an entire life star burst out from where the God Clan warrior was standing. Magical intent domains came from the immense, torrentially light waves. Shelling energies dissolved, turning into light raindrops that were sent everywhere. Deafening explosions reverberated while the soul-confining platform exploded into many big fragments. Shi Yang's face became colder. Under the tremendous power of many original God Realm experts, he had to dodge the sharp attacks. His mind flickered and swayed as he ran away from the battle site. After several moves, he reached Ka Tuor and Feng Ku. He looked fearful. Original God Realm is really awesome. That old Kodja fan, he does have earth-shaking powers when he recovered. The gap between realms is really obvious. Although Ka Tuor was also at the original God Realm, he didn't join the battle, his face ashamed. Those who are joining the battle are all at the second sky of original God Realm. Fan, he is at the third sky of original God Realm. We have many experts joining hands. That man should die, right? He wasn't so sure about this. This place built by the God Clan hid some riddles that they couldn't solve. The remaining member of the God Clan was someone who stayed in an area that could confine even an incipient God Realm expert. Could he be so easy to deal with? I think he hasn't recovered fully, but he's still formidable. I don't know his real realm. Feng Areo's eyes were gloomy as she was worried. I hope that they can destroy him. Otherwise, we can't escape from here alive. Boom. A magical light circle expanded from the shattered soul-confining platform at its center. The light rippled like several billion snakes swimming, hiding the complicated intent domains, and covering half of the soul-confining platform area. The attacks by the original God Realm experts including Fan He, Aogu Duo, Bai Tian, and Tuor Hai, fell into the light circle as if they were bombarding a rubber ball. Their attacks couldn't get through and they bounced backward instead. Furious energies were sent backward. Once they hit the warriors, whether they were pirates or members of the three big forces, they dissolved into dust and scattered immediately that left nothing behind if they hadn't reached the original God Realm. A flow of pressure came from the place where the God Clan man was standing. Many low realm warriors had to sit down and they gasped for their breath. They could only steady their god souls. They couldn't even make themselves think about joining that battle. This was the greatest difference between their realms. Apparently, the wounded expert of the God Clan hadn't restored half of his power. But with the advantage of his high realm, he could suffocate people. His soul altar seemed to have a powerful subduing force that restrained people's souls. They had the uncontrollable thought of worshipping him and standing on the same side as him. The gap between their realms was vast. Although his power hadn't been restored fully, it was enough to suppress the low-realm warriors, making them not able to resist. Ka Tuor and Shi Yang also felt their soul altars dampen and their powers get restrained. Ethereal God Realm. He is in this realm, at least. Ka Tuor was frightened and uneasily restless. My. A live ethereal God Realm warrior, if he is in his peak state, we won't be different from a worm in his eyes, right? He just needs to flicker his fingers and he can kill many of us. Feng Rao was baffled. If we give him time to recover further, we won't have a chance to survive. Shi Yang shivered, feeling powerless. Without the power of the divine sword, would he be able to break those stone steelies? Stooping to see the divine sword with the bizarre blood-red eyes, Shi Yang took a deep breath as he knew that his responsibility had become greater and the road ahead of him had become more unpredictable. Which level was the master of the blood vein ring that he dared to resist the God Clan? Being the heir, can I dodge the God Clan's slaughter like the previous master of the ring or not? Shi Yang thought. Each member of the Cortege of Eight was the most outstanding warrior of his or her generation. If the man who cultivated chaotic power Upanishad had the incipient God Realm, the others should have at least the same realm. 8 incipient God Realm experts and the owner of the blood vein ring had fallen or fleet. Could he change this destiny? A flock of animals we've kept in a cage now dares to rebel and betray its masters. You don't know how high the sky is. A tender voice echoed from the center of the soul-confining platform. The God Clan man said this indifferently with his cold face. Swish, swish, swish. Strikes of thunderbolt divine light bombarded like lightning striking from 9 tiers of the sky, sweeping through everywhere. Fan He, Tuo Hai, Aogu Duo, Feng Ku, Monica, Bai Tian, and Li Yufeng were the targets. They retreated in fright as they were fearful of the power that could destroy the soul altar. Sizzle, sizzle. Although Tuo Hai and Li Yufeng had created a light cage that covered them, a beam of thunderbolt divine light had hit them right in the middle. These 2-second sky of original God Realm experts paled. Under other people's gazes, their bodies were suddenly scattered into cubes of flesh as if they had been minced by a sharp knife. An unknown suction force came from the abdomen of that God clan man. The dark prison demonic flower reappeared, opening its scary mouth, which then chewed and swallowed the flesh blocks of Tuo Hai and Li Yufeng. 2 original God Realm experts couldn't even fight back under the thunderbolt divine light attacks. They died instantly at their spots. The God clan man wore a cold and harsh face. A grin cracked on his stiff mouth. He was excited to listen to the sounds of the mouth chewing bones. His eyes seemed to become more frantic. His ashen face glowed with health, full of vitality. The energy fluctuations of his body started to surge fiercely. Fan He, Aogu Duo, Feng Ku, Monica, Bai Tian were still alive as they had dodged the attack of the thunderbolt divine light. Seeing the demonic flower swallow Tuo Hai and Li Yufeng and make them its power supplement, they were so afraid, and they didn't dare to do anything. The God clan man wore a mocking face. He sneered, then condensed a thunderbolt bridge in the void, walking on it towards Shiyang. His eyes gazed on the Sky Destroyer sword in his hand. Kid, you have the bloodthirstiest bloodline, but you don't have enough luck. You dare to barge in my clan's god-perishing land with only King God Realm cultivation base. It's God's will that you will die here. While talking, the man approached Shiyang using his thunderbolt bridge. At this moment, he seemed to think that he had controlled everything in his hands, so he didn't need to rush. Under his gaze, Shiyang's soul altar felt like it had sunk into a bog, unable to wiggle. The energy in his body faded like a low tide. He didn't have any strength in his body now. Under the pressure of their different realms, he had almost kneeled down on the ground, slowly losing the control of his mind. Roar! The tremendous roaring suddenly came closer. Giant shadows emerged from the thick ivory mist. The God clan warrior frowned and snorted. Those damn reptiles. They still have hope. Do they think that they could turn this sky upside down? TCH. He seemed to be afraid of the oncoming savage beasts. He didn't want to waste his saliva more, although he had come here to talk to Shiyang. 2 flows of thunderbolt divine light shot out from his eyes. It looked like his thunderbolt divine light had consciousness, turning into 2 thunderbolt flood dragons with a tremendous intent domain. They opened their big mouths, lunging towards Shiyang to bite him. Chapter 883, Struggling. Chapter 883, Struggling. The thunderbolt flood dragons were flying, fully aware of what they were doing. The 2 100-meter-long dragons had electric strikes wind around their bodies, moving with an intimidating intent domain that frightened people. Ka Tuor and Feng Rao stood close to Shiyang. Their expressions changed dramatically. Seeing the attack of the 2 dragons, they were very afraid and subdued, as if they were facing the original power of the purest thunderbolts. Shiyang brought out his divine sword, his face stiff and cold. He instinctively released all of his power. A strange phenomenon occurred. The divine sword cut the void. Space slits appeared long and narrow like blades. They gathered thickly in front of him. This was the only counterattack he could think of at this moment. Against the God clan man, Shiyang didn't know if his other tricks would work. Tuo Hai and Li Yufeng had died tragically at their spots. If Shiyang used force to defend himself from the incoming attacks, his death would be instant. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The thick space slits became chaotic in a blink, bringing layers of strange illusions. Shiyang's figure flashed continuously as he was moving between the space slits. His aura flashed on and off aimlessly. The 2 thunderbolt flood dragons soared up into the sky since they had lost track of him in those space slits. They couldn't smash him with just 1 strike as they initially intended. Fan his group kept their eyes on the situation to seize the chance. Seeing the God clan man attack Shiyang, they hesitated. Still, They released their powers Upanishad one more time. These 5 original God Realm experts knew that if they couldn't kill this man, they would never live another day in peace. It was possible that the entire raging Flamestar area would sink into a disaster. They joined hands again as they knew they had to do it. Different powers Upanishad emerged in the void, creating a glorious light current. By controlling their soul altars, the light curtain expanded towards the God Clan man. You don't know your strength. The God Clan man wore a cold countenance, but his voice was tender. He calmly grabbed something from the void. An unknown power gathered pieces of iron chains on the ground. They formed a 100-meter chain with moving flames on it. At this moment, the iron chain seemed to be bestowed with an endless power. He waved his hand and the iron chain straightened like a black sword, stabbing forward. The iron chain pierced through Fengku's gusts and fan his metal powers easily. The power Upanishad that accompanied the attacks was solved easily. P2E. Fengku spat out blood. His face paled the color of a sheet of paper. He got hurt after this strike, his face exhausted. Even Fan He, who was at the 3rd sky of original God Realm, was shaking. The explosion echoed through his body. A strange force had pushed him backward. Blood splashed his chest. The 3 warriors at the original God Realm, Aogu duo, Bai Tian, and Monica, were also affected by the sharp aura of the iron chain. Their god domains vanished as their god souls couldn't control it anymore. Swish. Swish. A dark prison demonic flower turned into ashes in the air, leaving nothing after the earth flame and the vermilion bird flame had burned it down. Rage filled the God Clan man's eyes immediately. The fact that one dark prison demonic flower got burned down meant that one of his fellows had perished completely. The 2 heaven flames were covering several hundred dark prison demonic flowers, and each of those demonic flowers contained a wounded member of the God Clan. They were all his fellows. As they had been hurt severely after years of battle, they couldn't gather their consciousness to get out of the stone steles. They hadn't woken up yet. That was why they couldn't escape the heaven flames' incineration. After a certain time, they were going to be reduced to ashes. The young and hot heaven flames were the nemesis of the demonic flowers. They were the rare living beings in this world that could kill the demonic flowers. Seeing many flowers wither and be about to be burned, the God Clan man snorted and moved towards the 2 heaven flames. He temporarily left Fan He and Fengku aside. Dots of divine light filled his eyes and then showered like rain. Divine light shelled on the center of the heaven flames. The earth flame and the vermilion bird flame became stagnant after those light dots attacked them. Their seething flames and scorching powers were reduced massively. A light sphere condensed with countless gorgeous light dots emerging in his palm that slowly expanded. Thoughts of destruction and an energy wave that would destroy the soul arose clearly and continually. His eyes were cold and disdainful as he looked at the area where heaven flames were circling. An icy cold smirk hung on the corner of his mouth. The earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame felt the energy wave that could potentially destroy their life forms almost at the same time. They became fearful, retrieving their powers. They didn't wait for Shi Yang's orders, turning into dormant flames and disappearing into his heaven flame soul altar. The light sphere that he releases can erase our life forces. We can't resist it. The earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame sent their thoughts. They were very cautious. You guys can't resist it. Shi Yang frowned, still moving through different space slits to avoid the 2 thunderbolt flood dragons. Since the dragons seemed to be capable of thought, Shi Yang didn't dare to stop for even a moment. Our level isn't high enough. Perhaps if we were level 8, we would be able to transform into a wonderful life form and ignore his lethal powers in that light sphere. However, we can't match him at this moment, said the vermilion bird true flame. The earth flame added, this man's competence is above what we can comprehend. His soul hasn't been restored yet, so his power is still limited. If he was in his peak condition, I can't imagine. Shi Yang was solemn. Indeed, he wasn't wrong. This tremendous God Clan man hadn't restored his full powers yet. If he was restored to his peak condition, Fan his team would have had no room to resist. When they faced him, their soul altars would be shattered instantly with just one look. He confirmed that this man's realm was definitely much higher than the original God realm. We should try another approach. Shi Yang was lucid enough to attempt to find a new solution. He urged his power Upanishad, moving the space slits near him. The thick space slits in the void pressed down like a quiet, giant mouth looming over the dark prison demonic flowers. The man from the God clan understood Shi Yang's plan immediately. He paled for the first time. You dare. Why not? Shi Yang mumbled faintly, urging all of his energy and making the space slits grumblingly surround the dark prison demonic flowers. Disorderly space energy gushed out from the space slits. The dark prison demonic flower buds were pulled by unknown forces, disappearing into the space slits. Within 3 seconds, more than 300 dark prison demonic flowers had fallen into the space slits, scattering in layers of a perilous chaotic space basin. Go. Burn them down. We are interlinked. I can summon you guys later. Shi Yang gave his order. The earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame didn't linger, turning into 2 flaming lights that flew into one of the space slits, thanks to the connection they had with Shi Yang's soul. They stayed in the space basin and continued to capture the dark prison demonic flowers. They didn't give the demonic flowers a chance to resist. The heaven flames would burn all the flowers and the God clan clansmen that they carried. Although the God clan was strong, their population was small, and their breeding was a struggle. When each of them died, it was a great loss to their overall powers. Thus, the God clan had spent a lot of effort to build the God perishing land in this area to recover their wounded fellows. They didn't care about death or life of the other races. They had confined the existences at the original God realm, ethereal God realm, and incipient God realm to prepare for the recovery of their clansmen. It was significant how much they cared about their clansmen's welfare. More than 300 dark prison demonic flowers each carried a God clan's member. There could potentially be some warriors that were stronger than the first one who had recovered. Since they hadn't had enough energy to restore their consciousness, they remained vulnerable. Shi Yang brought them and the demonic flowers into the most magical space basin in this world. The heaven flames incinerated them, resulting in lots of damage to the God clan. The God clan man was so angry he almost cracked crazily. He didn't hesitate, heading towards Shi Yang. He didn't use the thunderbolt dragons as he wanted to crush Shi Yang with his own power right in front of those space slits. Then, he would bring his fellows back from the space basin. Shi Yang's face grimaced. Seeing the God clan man coming like an erupting volcano, his spirit fell and he was unable to use his power to resist. Shi Yang had only the king God realm. He was facing an ethereal God realm. With this vast gap between their realms, how could he resist? He felt like his hands were tied. Looking at the space splits, strange light sparkled in his eyes as he was trying to make up his mind. Perhaps he could hide into the space slits to avoid this God clan expert this time. However, inside the space slits were the most mysterious and perilous areas in this world. As Shi Yang cultivated space power, he knew the dangers in there better than anyone else. Once a warrior sank in there, it was unknown if he could get out of that damn place before he died. He was in a hurry and he didn't have the empty fantasy crystal here. Also, it was hard to urge the immortal demon blood to connect to the Grace mainland. His soul altar was still affected, so he couldn't build the space passage through the space slits. Such a headache. While he was hesitant, trying to find the best decision, darkness flew over their area from somewhere far away. Absolute darkness pressed down. Then, a senile voice arose. I'll handle that God clan expert. You should try your best to incinerate those demonic flowers. It was Fei Lan. Her voice came from the darkness. They couldn't feel her aura, as if she was a ghost hiding all living signals. However, at the moment her voice arose, the experts of the pirates and the 3 big forces felt the formidable pressure in their souls lift away. In the darkness, it seemed like there was an invisible hand that had ripped off the invincible might of the God clan expert. Everyone was relieved. Chapter 884, The Four-Tiered Soul Altar Runs Away. Chapter 884, The Four-Tiered Soul Altar Runs Away. When Fei Lan's voice arose, Endless magic seeped into the place and broke the restraints on everyone's souls. The pressure on Shiyang faded away. All the warriors of the raging Flamestar area could finally relax now. It was like a giant rock that was pressing down on their chest was lifted. Some intent domain that the God Clan man released had been ripped apart instantaneously. Fei Lan. It's Fei Lan. It's her. How could it be? Many pirates who had visited Fei Lan's shop recognized her senile voice. Shortly after, people burst out noisily. They clamored continually, their faces showing their dumbfoundedness. She's the protector of Heaven Punishment City. Feng Ku was baffled for a while before he could react. He was so happy. The pirates' eyes brightened up, looking at the sky instinctively, their visages astounded. The dark light curtain vanished, revealing two people. They were Fei Lan and Leona. Aogu Duo glanced at Leona. He was shocked, his face disbelieving. You've broken through. Fan He, Bai Tian, Monica, and the others discolored in fright. They all studied Leona with awe. They all felt the energy fluctuation from Leona. It was the unique feature of the third sky of original God Realm. Except for Fan He, everyone else was affected. Their sea of consciousness felt like it was sinking into an absolute darkness. When the power Upanishad had been cultivated to a certain degree, it could create a subtle pressure on the other warriors. Oh, more remaining evils, the God Clan man snorted, his face stiff and cold. I didn't expect that the lineage of Bloodthirsty had so many members in the raging Flamestar area. All right. This is good then. I can sweep them all at once. If you're in your best condition, you do indeed are capable of such. Too bad that this is not the case right now, said Fei Lan with her wrinkled face and muddy eyes. I came just in time. If we gave you more time, perhaps you could restore your power to the peak. But now, you will die. As soon as she finished talking, her body twisted, and she morphed into a cluster of turbid air with corrosive power. It expanded towards that God Clan man. An erosive intent domain that could destroy any kind of powers Upanishad was released from that turbid air. The two Thunderbolt Flood Dragons created by the God Clan warrior dissolved when the opaque air cluster touched it. The dragon's energy became nothing, disappearing into earth and heaven. Ethereal God Realm. The God Clan man changed his visage. He became more solemn for the first time. I didn't think that the raging Flamestar area still has ethereal God Realm experts. No wonder why you were so arrogant. When he said that, Fan He, Aogu Duo, Bai Tian, Monica, and Feng Ku gawked. No matter how hard they tried to imagine, they could never imagine that the senile woman staying several thousand years in the Heaven Punishment City to keep a tattered shop was someone at the ethereal God Realm, a level that was even stronger than Du Tianji and the hegemon of the Underworld League. The ethereal God Realm was the realm that Du Tianji and the hegemon of the Underworld League had been chasing for their entire lives. And now they knew that an ethereal God Realm expert was secluded in the land of God Punishment, right in Heaven Punishment City. Ah! Feng Rao dropped her jaw as her soft body shivered. Light sparkled in her beautiful eyes. She stared at Fei Lan, who was a cluster of turbid air now. Ka Tuor's eyes brightened. He tried to press down his excitement. His voice trembled. Senior, our precursor is at the ethereal God Realm. Shiyang was also shocked. He was astounded by this fact. Turns out she's at the ethereal God Realm. No wonder why she was able to erase Fan Yi that easily. She could subdue all the warriors and tie them down. At this moment, he finally knew why Aogu Duo, Bai Tian, and Li Yufeng couldn't force Leona to get out even if they had joined hands to attack here. Ethereal God Realm. They finally had an answer for everything. It was the Super Realm, the intimidating power that has never been shown in the raging Flamestar area. It was enough to subdue everybody. Let alone Aogu Duo, Bai Tian, Li Yufeng, even Du Tianji and the hegemon of the Underworld League couldn't match them. What could they do? Leona glared at Aogu Duo and Bai Tian, her face full of scary scars. She stood firmly next to Shiyang, frowning and urging him. What are you waiting for? Shiyang was perplexed for a while before he could react. He gave an embarrassed smile and sat down cross-legged in the void. His soul thought extended through a space slit. Do your best to burn those demonic flowers and the God Clan members. Don't worry. We have a strong expert here. Flows of his pure soul energy extended into a space slit from his soul altar, trying to boost up the heaven flames. Shi Yang and his heaven flames were interlinked. As they had stayed in his soul altar, the only way he could support the heaven flames was to give them his pure soul energy. Although they were too far away from each other, he could still sense the joy of the earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame when they received his energy. They were doing their best to damage the God Clan. Releasing his soul energy, Shi Yang didn't care about what happened around him. With Leona standing right next to him, he knew that no one could hurt him now. He didn't need to worry. He just remained focused on his job. The soul confining platform was broken into many blocks. The warriors of the three big forces gathered in one place, the pirates stood in another place, while Shi Yang, Ka Tuor, and Leona claimed a different area. Although they were standing in different spots, all were facing the sky, looking at the deep place in the void where a cluster of corrosive air was expanding and covering the entire sky. Under the effect of that corrosive air, all powers Upanishad and intent domains were affected, slowly disintegrating. The erosive air shrouded the god body of that God Clan man. No one could see them. They could only sense two soul-destructive energies continually colliding with each other. What generated from their collision could easily erase the warriors here. Under Fey Land's complete protection, no extra beam of energy spilled over from the sky. People's soul altars weren't affected, so they were able to use the god soul to sense the earth-shaking commotion in the air. It was unknown why after Fey Land spoke, the wild beasts that had been attacking the place had quieted down. They seemed to have lost their intent to jump into this platform. In the thick mist out there, people could see more than 10 vague giant figures. They looked like giant, ferocious beasts. They floated silently in the dark area of the void, watching. They seemed to keep their eyes on the commotion over there, waiting for the results so that they could barge into the place to achieve their priorities. Original God Realm, not bad. You've broken through, too. Leona glanced at Ka Tuor, nodding slowly to recognize his efforts. Ka Tuor became shy and uneasy under Leona's gaze. My fortune came. We encountered the easygoing king of Heaven Hall on the way. I took a flow of chaotic energy, explained Ka Tuor. A flow of chaotic energy? Leona furrowed her brows. How about that easygoing king of Heaven Hall? You took in the energy that restrained it. Did it run away? Ka Tuor was surprised, nodded honestly. Yes, it did. Leona darkened her face. The exhausted soul of easygoing King of Heaven was fused with his King of Heaven Hall. That chaotic energy was killing his willpower slowly, little by little. It has been so long, so his energy should be like a lamp without oil. You absorbed the chaotic energy, which had been subduing it. Of course, the King of Heaven Hall could escape, and the easygoing King of Heaven wouldn't die. He now can restore his power one more time. You idiot. Ka Tuor's face shivered as he recognized that he had done a stupid deed. He didn't dare to retort. He just stooped, saying nothing. You've reached the original God realm due to this encounter? Asked Leona. Ka Tuor nodded again, his face miserable. Forget it. At least it helped you break through to the new realm. Leona pondered for a while. She seemed begrudging. Even if he escapes, he can't restore within 100 years. And 100 years later, you will perhaps be able to match him. She eyed Shi Yang. Ka Tuor was bewildered. Leona didn't explain. What exploded this body-perishing land? Ka Tuor was shocked. He hurried to give her the details carefully with a remark of Shi Yang's excellent performance. Leona listened to him attentively without any interruption. After Ka Tuor had finished, she nodded slowly. Summoning the divine sword, not bad. It's the precise solution in those given circumstances. He destroyed the body-perishing land without a mistake. He can undertake significant missions then. Ka Tuor just smiled begrudgingly. He didn't intervene her, acting like a smart student. Feng Rao hadn't said anything. She observed Leona, the notorious female executioner. She was scared and didn't feel comfortable. She couldn't act naturally. Leona didn't bat an eye at her. She just talked to Ka-Tuor or looked at Shi-Yang, ignoring Feng Rao. In Leona's eyes, only the ones with the relative inheritance deserved her glance. She wouldn't care about anyone else. Many experts of the raging flamestar area were watching the sky. They could only see the void get pressed down while the corrosive air was crossing the sky. An unknown energy fluctuation made people want to kneel down and worship it. Their souls didn't have a bit of power to resist. After an unknown time, fierce explosions echoed, shaking the entire sky. The corrosive air shrank and then expanded and exploded right afterward. A magnificent soul altar shot out from the cluster of erosive air, turning into an electric light. Before people could react, it flew towards Shi-Yang. In people's gazes, it disappeared into a space slit in just a blink of an eye. All the warriors could see that the marvelous soul altar didn't have 3 tiers as it used to. It had 4 tiers. The 4-tiered soul altar disappeared into the space slit Shi-Yang had torn. It vanished in just a blink, leaving no aura. The corrosive air in the sky moved as if it had consumed a lot of energy, and it was trying to gather again. Fei Lan didn't have the extra energy to chase after the 4-tiered soul altar. She could only look at him leave. Still can manage to escape. The God clan is truly powerful, as the legends say. Leona was calm, looking at the 4-tiered soul altar disappearing into the space slit. She muttered, her countenance heavy. Ka-Tuor was scared. He bewilderedly looked at the space slit, asking, did he jump into the chaotic space basin to save his fellows? Leona discolored. Chapter 885, The Hollow Channel. Chapter 885, The Hollow Channel. Shi-Yang floated in the void in front of many space slits. He looked calm while his soul energy was entering the space slits, moving towards the earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame like cotton threads. After the earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame had received his soul energy, their powers started to rise. They could incinerate the demonic flowers more smoothly. However, Shi-Yang couldn't see with his own eyes. He could only use the connection with the heaven flames to touch a magical point. The 4-tiered soul altar had jumped into his space slit at maximum speed. When Shi-Yang noticed the commotion, it had disappeared. That 4-tiered soul altar seemed to be the distinctive feature of the ethereal god realm, which hid endless mysteries. After it had stormed into the space slit, its aura didn't remain. Shi-Yang couldn't sense anything. He could hear Ka-Tuor and Leona talking, but he didn't participate. Ka-Tuor reminded Shi-Yang that it was possible. He didn't consider much, immediately sending his thoughts to the heaven flames and asking them to be cautious to not let the ethereal god realm expert find them. The cluster of corrosive air faded in the void. Fei Lan had disappeared for a long time. It seemed like she was gathering herself piece by piece. After a while, Fei Lan stooped to watch. She frowned, slowly landing and speaking to Fan He from a far distance. I heard you came to the Heaven Punishment City for me. You want to take revenge for your little brother. Fei Lan killed Fan Yi. After Fan He found out about this, he had crossed thousands of miles to take revenge against the attacker hiding in Heaven Punishment City. However, at this moment, Fan He grimaced as he realized Fei Lan's formidable realm. I think you want to do it, but you don't have the required competence. Fei Lan's face was indifferent, her eyes still cloudy as if she couldn't see too far. While she was talking, she slowly landed near Shi-Yang and Leona, speaking deliberately. We don't need to worry about that God clan man. He doesn't have extra strength to mess around with. I've integrated my corrosive power in his soul altar. He will need to use all of his energy to protect himself. He won't be free to do anything else. Fei Lan's words sounded easy and deliberate. It seemed like the corrosive air would trouble this God clan expert a lot. Her confidence was completely reflected in her relaxed bearings. Leona and Ka-Tuor calmed down after listening to her. They were no longer restless. Anyway, he's at the second sky of ethereal god realm, and he has formed the 4-tiered soul altar. It can't be broken easily. I can't do it. Fei Lan sighed. I've spent several thousand years to enter the ethereal god realm. This realm is profound and mysterious. If you don't have a great deal of patience, a great mind or amazing luck, it'll be very tough to enter the threshold. That man is just an anonymous member of the God clan, but his at the ethereal God realm. This clan is intimidating, indeed. Leona's team wore heavy visages. Thank you, Precursor. Thank you for protecting Heaven Punishment City for so many years. Foam Ku led his pirates and kneeled down to conduct their grateful ceremony towards her. We look forward to receiving your leadership. Please lead us to a brighter future. Foam Ku gave a low shout, his face incomparably sincere. The reason why the land of God Punishment and the Heaven Punishment City were able to stand tall for several thousand years was that of Fei Lan. Seeing her formidable realm today, all the pirates had admiration and respect for her. Although the God clan couldn't threaten them now, Fan He, Aogu Duo, Bai Tian, and Monica were all the second sky of original Godrealm warriors. If they wanted to attack the pirates, Foam Ku knew they wouldn't be able to fight Fei Lan. As long as Fei Lan nodded and agreed to protect them, no threat could actually threaten them. Fan He and the other experts of the three big forces couldn't do anything. Destroying people of the three big forces was the wish of Foam Ku and the pirates. If Fei Lan helped them now, their expedition would have no obstacles anymore. Thus, they waited for her answer. Seeing Foam Ku lead the pirates to beg Fei Lan, Fan His team were frightened, their faces grimaced. Fei Lan was too strong. She was at the ethereal God realm. She could chase away the fellow of the God clan. She had made the man run away with only the soul altar. If she wanted to kill them, who would escape alive? Fan He didn't have this confidence. I have nothing to do with your dispute. I protect the Heaven Punishment City because I don't want to see the city collapse. My devil of a man had built this city. I have to protect it. It's not because of you pirates. Fei Lan snorted. It was obvious that she wasn't interested in handling their business. This place isn't the Heaven Punishment City. I don't care about your rotten plans. If you want to finish your grudge, manage it yourself. She didn't care about it. A vague, giant shadow slowly approached in the void. A pungent smell slapped their faces. It smelled like the saliva of wild beasts. A heavy pressure immediately covered the warriors. Gradually, more and more shadows emerged from the thick, dark mist. Dozens of them had blocked the exits of the broken soul confining platform. The threatening force filled the void and reflected in people's soul. All felt extremely anxious. Savage beast. The ferocious beasts had paused their barging. After the fight in the soul confining platform ended, they started to move again. Fan He and the pirates were very scared. Especially the strong experts of the three big forces. They were restlessly uneasy. They had survived those wild beasts in the illusory formation. They knew how strong and savage the beasts were. They even felt that one of those beasts was even stronger and more intimidating than the God clan expert. Fei Lan furrowed her brows, facing the sky and talking coldly. I know this place is your territory. Just be patient for a little while and give me more time. We have an agreement. Please comply with it. She was talking to the wild beasts in the void, and the strange thing was that the flock of strong beasts had slowed down after she said that. It seemed like they were fulfilling what Fei Lan called an agreement. The tremendous shadows halted in the mist as if they were waiting for something. They didn't move any further. The largest figure seemed to be the leader. It was very close to Fei Lan, so close that it could snatch her away with only one jump. However, it didn't do that. It seemed like this giant beast was afraid of something. The beast leader was using its magical mind to control the other beasts. Under the beast's control, the flock of ferocious beasts didn't do anything. They were waiting uneasily for something. Seeing them pause, Fei Lan glanced at Shi Yang, urging, "When will you be done?" 15 minutes, Shi Yang answered resolutely. "Hurry up. Those guys can't wait any longer. There is a hollow channel in this body-perishing land leading to their ancestral land. They've just got out of the God clan's restraint, which was in place for so many years. They can't stay patient anymore. They won't give us much time," explained Fei Lan. "A hollow channel?" Shi Yang was surprised. "We are bothering them by being here." "You will, Feilan frowned, nodded. They couldn't help but eat all the people here to supplement their consumed energy. It's their basic instinct that even their leader can't control them. I think the hollow channel is perhaps the way we need to go to get through the barrier that shields this star area. The place the star map shows should be inside that hollow channel. We must get in there first before the beasts destroy it. Why did that God clan expert not escape through the hollow channel? Shi Yang didn't understand. You talk too much. Feilan was impatient. The God clan guarded that channel. The body-perishing land is established here with an important purpose, which is to control the channel. This channel is the intersection between star areas. Of course, they would face God clan's enemies. If he got in there, would it be different from courting death himself? The ethereal God realm warriors have four-tiered soul altar. Perhaps he can find a way to survive. He is most confident with that, so he dared to go in. He was scared only because the channel leads to another star area which could hold life that can kill him. Shi Yang smiled embarrassedly, not wanting to speak more. He hurried to gather his pure soul altar, sending into the space slit. With the power supplied from his soul energy fluctuations of the earth flame and the vermilion bird true flame became stronger and clearer. They could burn the dark prison demonic flowers faster in the chaotic space basin. The massive shadows in the void became restless. They were constantly moving. Fresh blood scents permeated the area fiercely, irritating people. They felt like they had fallen into the giant mouth of the beast. In the next moment, they would be swallowed. Roar. Some beasts roared from a far distance as if they had found new prey. Feilan frowned. She gathered her spirit to sense for a while, looking at Leona, talking. It's Carthew. Let him come here, Leona replied. Feilan hesitated a little bit before she reluctantly talked to the void. They are my people. Tell your grandchildren to let them through. The wild roaring halted. More than 10 savage beasts seemed to get the order at the same time. They quit their aggressive actions immediately. This flock of beasts had a wise leader, obviously. After the beasts stopped roaring, some people emerged from the thick mist. They were Carthew, Yarrow, Yalan, and Taimu. All of them were very frightened, as if they had experienced the most frightful things in their lives. As soon as Carthew appeared, his eyes brightened, looking at Leona. He didn't say anything, bringing Yarrow and his team and landing near her. Yarrow's soft body was covered in 7-colored divine light. Her pretty eyes sparkled, not leaving Shi Yang for even a second. I'm done. At this moment, Shi Yang opened his eyes, giving a faint smile. I'm lucky I didn't fail my mission. We burned them down. I think those wounded warriors of the God clan can't revive again to mess around. The 2 heaven flames flew out of a space slit, turning into 2 small flames and disappearing into his pupils. At this moment, he saw Yarrow. He was surprised, revealing a bright smiling face and nodding his head to greet her. Yarrow slightly shivered. Her mouth curved into a happy, beautiful smile. Let's go. Feilan said faintly and then grabbed something in the void. The star map Shi Yang was holding appeared in her palm. A block of thick darkness shrouded Shi Yang, Ka Tuor, Fong Rao, and Carthew. Leona took them, plunging into a place in the bottom of the broken soul confining platform. In that area, countless lights congregated, creating a multi-layered space passage that looked like an illusion. If you don't want to be meat in their mouths, follow us. Feilan's voice arose in the darkness. Everybody was startled. They didn't dare linger, flying towards the vague space passage. Chapter 886, Just Friends. Chapter 886, Just Friends, _. As the absolute darkness covered all of them, they couldn't see anything around as they flew forward. However, it didn't take a long time before they started to fall into a deep chasm, sinking rapidly. Boom. They landed one after another, feeling the entire world tumbling. After a long while, they finally gathered their consciousness. Boom. The undying wood star map on Feilan's hand suddenly exploded all of a sudden. Its dust scattered in the air. The darkness faded away. A beautiful scenery was slowly revealed in people's sight. It was a luxuriant forest with dense, ancient trees. Small, ancient trees were dozens of meters tall, while the bigger ones had so many branches that it made them look like a small mountain that was several hundred meters high. The tree trunk could occupy a couple mu of land that would require more than 100 people to circle it. The gravity here was hundreds of times heavier. No King God Realm warriors could fly in such terrifying gravity. The original God Realm could float a little higher than the ground. Only existences like Fey Lan could escape the gravity and hover dozens of meters in the air. Earth and heaven energy here was thick and abundant. It surged like the immense ocean, making people feel relaxed. They felt indescribably cozy, sinking into the sea of energy. Not far from them was a lake that hadn't been contaminated yet. The water was so clear that they could even see the bottom. Mist hovered above the water surface with dense water chi. The humidity in this area was pretty high. Beautiful floras of all kinds of colors and species grew by the lake. Some had 5-colored leaves and branches while others had jewel-like roots. Their vitality was immense, as if those plants were intelligent. Alchemist Jester was shocked. Bright light sparkled in his eyes as he studied the foliage by the lake. He muttered as if he was dreaming. 3-leaf crown orchid, the top grass to nurture the soul. Jade water lily. He mumbled to himself as if he had just fallen into bedevilment. The alchemist instinctively walked towards the lake, completely forgetting where he was. Fei Lan frowned. Her face was dark and heavy as she spoke to Leona. The star map exploded by itself. I don't know where the hollow channel is. Even if we find it, without the star map, we can't get back. Leona slightly changed her visage. She was startled and she muttered to herself. Where are we? Where is Fan his group? Asked Shiyang. Hearing him, people started to react. They looked around, but no one could see Fan He, Feng Ku, the warriors of the 3 big forces and the pirates led by Feng Ku. It was unknown why their destinations were different. Only dozens of Ka Tuor's pirates, Feng Rao, Carthew and his people, and Zi Yarrow were here. Not many people Shiyang didn't know. When they were still in the soul confining platform, Alchemist Jester had decided to walk to Shiyang. That was why he was brought here. The others seemed to scatter as they didn't depart at the same time. Why should we care about their lives? Leona snorted, speaking indifferently. It's good that they died. We don't need to use our force to kill them. She neither had a good feeling for the experts of the 3 big forces nor the pirates. Except for Ka Tuor and Shiyang, the ones with secret inheritances, Leona didn't mind anybody else, including Zi Yao. They headed to the same place with us. However, their stop was different. I need to check it out. Fei Lan squinted calmly as if she started to release her transcendent soul consciousness to search. After a long while, she shook her head. This place is really magical and so vast. My soul consciousness couldn't cover it all, but I didn't see them anywhere in the areas I could reach. Shiyang was so surprised. Fei Lan was at the ethereal god realm, the strongest realm he had seen until now. Although the land of god punishment was so vast, her soul consciousness could observe every corner. Nothing could avoid her sensing. However, she said that she couldn't sense this luxuriant, boundless forest entirely. So it meant that this forest is larger than the land of god punishment. Level 7 life star, at least. My, the place the star map marked isn't just a hoax. It's a level 7 life star. Jester was dedicatedly collecting spiritual grass and plants by the lake. He was so excited that he acted like a child finding treasure. He swung his hands. Spiritual herbs nurtured by nature in a level 7 life star are the best ingredients to refine pellets and medicines. Being able to see those top quality materials. It is worth it even if I have to die. A level 7 life star? Shiyang was shocked as his hope amplified endlessly in his heart. Yes, it is. Jester nodded heavily. If it isn't a level 7 life star, how can it grow so many precious spiritual herbs like this? No matter where we are, to the alchemists, this place is the best place that we have ever dreamed of. What Jester said couldn't stir up Fei Lan and Leona as they were wearing strange, heavy faces. What are you worried about? Shi Yang was surprised and didn't know anything. This place has abundant earth and heaven energy. We hope that there's no life here. Otherwise, it would be very intimidating. Fei Lan took a deep breath, her face bitter. Our Raging Flame Star area doesn't have a level 7 life star, but we do have King Godrealm and Original Godrealm warriors. And I, after thousands of years of accumulation, have entered the ethereal God realm. This place has so much energy. If creatures can cultivate here, they will receive a lot of benefits. Their progress would be tremendous. Besides the spiritual grass and plants, a level 7 life star can produce materials like ores, divine crystals, and other precious crystals. It will be beyond your imagination. If the creatures here know how to cultivate with abundant earth and heaven energy here, combined with the access to spiritual herbs and crystals, they would progress rapidly. I think cultivating to the ethereal God realm wouldn't be as much of a struggle like in the Raging Flame Star area. Leona also wore a heavy visage. Listening to them, Shi Yang suddenly quieted down. It was true that the Grace Mainland had entered the last phase of its energy cycle, but it still had the peak of true God realm warriors. The Raging Flame Star area had level 5 life stars, so it could have characters like Du Tianji, Fan He, and Fei Lan at the ethereal God realm. This place had better natural resources and plenty of earth and heaven energy. If creatures here knew how to cultivate, their attainment would surpass the Raging Flame Star area for sure. You guys stay here. I'm going to search around, said Fei Lan after contemplating for a while. She didn't wait for Leona and Shi Yang to answer, slowly floating up into the sky and flying to the further area. Since she was at the ethereal God realm, she could cross 1,000 miles in just a blink of an eye if she was in the Raging Flame Star area. However, this magical place had gravity that was several hundred times heavier, so her speed had slowed down too. Shi Yang and the others could see her floating and moving in the air. Shi Yang, at this moment, Zi Yarrow approached him, beaming a weak smile. I've broken through. Shi Yang was stunned. Afterward, he managed to beam a bright smile, speaking honestly. Congratulations. Original God Realm. Your power will increase massively. I think that even if you don't depend on anyone, you can earn a seat for yourself. I'm not as excellent as you are. Zi Yarrow didn't sound arrogant or content. Compared to you, nobody could have the same rate of cultivation speed. When I first knew you, you had only the true God Realm cultivation base. Your progression is a miracle. I have good fortune. Shi Yang smiled, talking naturally. Seems like you were delayed on your way. Or else, you wouldn't have been so late. Yeah, I had a good encounter, but it took some time to break through. Zi Yarrow nodded and smiled. You and the pirates have separated now. What is your plan for the coming time? I'm one of the pirates. What do you mean by separated? Feng Rao wore a cold face, storming over and clutching Shi Yang's arm, placing her head next to his and showing the others how close they were. From the day he and I left the Purgatory Star, he became no longer a member of your divine nation. You don't have the power to bind him. Feng Rao looked at Shi Yang. She paused and then bit her lower lip. Do you still want to depend on her and be her escort? Shi Yang frowned, keeping silent. Zi Yarrow's beautiful eyes showed that she was embarrassed. She pondered and then said faintly, I have never considered Shi Yang my subordinate in the way that I've treated him. In my heart, he has always been my close friend. That will never change. Close friend. Feng Rao mocked. When Aogu Duo trapped him in the Purgatory Star, where were you? When Ao Jer plotted against him, what were you doing? If you consider him your close friend, when people attacked him, you should have helped him immediately, right? But did you do that? Her Highness didn't know this. When Shi Yang was trapped in the extreme purgatory field, Her Highness had come to search for him. I can prove that Carthew gave a faint smile, expressing his opinion. Leona had an indifferent visage, observing at Shi Yang, who was sandwiched between two women. She deliberately moved away as if she didn't want to be involved in this mess, leaving Shi Yang to deal with his business. I always considered your Highness my friend. I always dis. Shi Yang smiled under Feng Rao's gaze, speaking deliberately. We'll still be friends in the future. You've treated me well. I will remember it. Friend. Zi Yaro's eyes flashed a hidden sorrow, but she pulled herself together shortly, nodded, and said, yes. It's true. We're friends. We'll always be. Friends only? Feng Rao looked at Shi Yang. Yeah, we're friends, Shi Yang confirmed. Feng Rao relaxed her tense nerves, beaming a bright smile. She didn't want to chase them furthermore. She just smiled. That is good then. I think you have many things to talk about as friends. Suit yourself. I'm not going to disturb you anymore. Then, Feng Rao walked away. She was a smart woman. She knew when to be tough and when to be flexible. She knew how to not displease someone. Because she minded someone, she would consider things for him. Putting up guard was okay, but she needed to also give them privacy. Carthew gave a faint smile. You guys should talk. He also left the place, leaving the two to have a private moment. After Feng Rao and Carthew left, Shi Yang and Zi Yaro fell into silence. The atmosphere between them was awkward. Chapter 887, Not Willing to be Mediocre. Chapter 887, Not Willing to be Mediocre. I admit that I intended to use you and take advantage of the relationship between you and the man who cultivated Dead Power Upanishad. But I have never intended to hurt you. Zi Yaro pondered for a while before speaking weakly. Shi Yang was bewildered. He chuckled and nodded. I believe you. I didn't know that Ao Jera was going to frame you. I couldn't predict that Aogu Duo planned to kill you in the Purgatory Star. Right now, I am no longer on good terms with Ao Jera, said Zi Yaro seriously. Shi Yang smiled again. I know that you didn't know anything. Because Aogu Duo and Ao Jera were not just targeting me. They aimed at you mainly. I'm sure that Ao Jera and Du Jiao have made some kind of agreement. Of course, Ao Jera doesn't want to kill you. He just wants to have you. Zi Yaro's face suddenly reddened. Her beautiful eyes sparkled strangely. I know of his scheming. I have always known it. So why have you kept him next to you? Shi Yang was surprised. I needed to use Ao Jera to compete for the throne against my brother. Zi Yaro bit her lower lip and stooped slightly. I didn't know you before I've known him. If I have known you earlier, I wouldn't have done that. Why? Shi Yang was astounded. It's enough to have you, Zi Yaro blushed, not daring to look at the man. She stooped, watching her toes with an anxious and shy face. Shi Yang's face stiffened. He was baffled and remained silent for a while. As he was saying nothing, Zi Yaro became more restless. She felt very uncomfortable. She just lowered her head and didn't say anything. The curve of her neck was so enchanting. She used to be the most glorious flower in the raging flamestar area, the most beautiful woman that every man had yearned for. When she was very shy, she looked even more mesmerizing. Men would feel touched when they looked at her in this state. Although her words weren't clear, Shi Yang wasn't a fool. He understood her. And because he understood, he didn't know how to reply. Thus, he decided to stay quiet. Previous interactions with Zi Yaro were spinning in his mind like a roll of beautiful snapshots. The astonishment he felt when he first saw her, he felt like he was meeting a fairy. The moment when they both fell into a disaster in the solar star exploding fragment field. All scenes of what they had shared since the time they were together. Everything suddenly revived as if they had just happened yesterday. However, today, they were different. Since Zi Yaro was the princess of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation, the beloved daughter of Du Tianji, she would have to put the Divine Nation as her top priority. No matter what happened in the near future, she couldn't just leave the Divine Nation behind to run away. As for Shi Yang, he didn't want to be bound. He didn't want to depend on any force. He had his own pursuits. He had responsibilities that he had been bearing for years that he couldn't ignore just because of a woman. Today, Shi Yang and Feng Rao were together, and he had a good relationship with the pirates. Considering the balance of the raging flamestar area, he and Zi Yaro were standing as rivals. Unless he gave up Feng Rao and his stubbornness and he decided to consider the Divine Nation his home, he and Zi Yaro would have a boundary that they couldn't cross. Naturally, He wouldn't do that. Shi Yang came to the raging flamestar area to find a way out for his friends and relatives. He was the heir of the blood vein ring and he carried an enormous burden. His life wouldn't be peaceful. It was impossible for him to stay in the divine nation, selling himself just because of a woman. Thus, after pondering for a while, he frowned and spoke faintly, I have only the king god realm. I've been struggling for my whole life. In this life, I'm not willing to be mediocre. I will move forward with my blood, sweat, and tears. I am destined to walk along a tough road. Perhaps, tomorrow, I may fall and perish. I consider you my friend. If you are ever in trouble, I won't just stand and stare. But I won't give up my independence for you. It's impossible for me to give up everything for you. Zi Yarrow lifted her head, gazing at him with her beautiful, sad eyes. After a while, she said, what if? I'm willing to give up everything for you. What would you do if I gave up the competition for the throne? I will ignore the chaotic kingdom and journey through all the ups and downs with you. What do you think about that? Shi Yang's eyes brightened as he was touched. However, at this moment, Fei Lan's figure slowly emerged from the far distance. While people were looking, she landed between them. Shi Yang and Zi Yarrow paused their unfinished conversation, moving towards Fei Lan to know what she had seen. I couldn't get out of this thick forest. It's really immense, more than 10 times larger than the land of God punishment. After Fei Lan landed, she was wearing a stern expression. The area I've checked had so many skeletons of giant beasts. Their level should be high though. I saw a grand mountain more than several thousand meters high. I could see giant houses there. But they are vague. Did you see any trace of creatures? Asked Shi Yang calmly. Perhaps no. Perhaps yes, Fei Lan contemplated, speaking uncertainly. Why do you say so? Shi Yang was perplexed. If it is a creature at the ethereal god realm, I can sense it. But if the creature's realm is higher than mine, I can't sense it. Fei Lan furrowed her brows tightly. I could feel some energy fluctuation on the mountain. But there is some energy that conceals the beings inside. I couldn't sense any signal on that mountain. Anyway, the houses there are so big that we can see them from 1,000 miles away. I think some creatures live there. How about going there to check it out? Suggested Shi Yang. Fei Lan and Leona put on a dark visage, not answering him immediately. Did you know the level of the savage beasts in the illusory formation out of the body perishing land? Fei Lan suddenly asked him. Shi Yang shook his head. Level 12, equal to ethereal god realm warriors. They belong to a kind of species that I've never seen before. They are a tribe. When we were traveling through the hollow passage, I left a flow of my erosive air. I can confirm that they are heading toward this place, but the destination is different. Fei Lan took a deep breath, talking simply. This place should be their ancestral land. They have level 12 beasts though. It's not like the rumor that this place hasn't been exploited yet. Something lives here. This land isn't unowned. Jester discolored. How could it be? If this lifestar has owners, why do they ignore so many precious spiritual herbs like this? Rumors in the raging flamestar area clearly say that the area the star map leads to hasn't been exploited yet. I also think the same. Fei Lan's eyes were cold as she said disdainfully, perhaps they are precious in your eyes, but they are nothing special in the eyes of this land's owners. These ordinary things all grow everywhere. Why should they treasure them? Jester was shocked, his face baffled. He wasn't an idiot. He immediately understood what Fei Lan was saying. It's true that this place was a level 7 lifestar, and of course, the spiritual grass and plants here wouldn't be normal in the eyes of the raging flamestar area's alchemists. Anyway, perhaps, they were just ordinary items in this place. Only rare ingredients never found before could be treasured and valued in the eyes of those who lived in this place. Because of his limited background, he didn't know enough about this place. He thought that the others would also treasure things that he deemed as precious items. I want to tell you that if this place does have living beings, they will be very intimidating. We are lucky that we haven't met them yet. If we encounter them, I'm not sure if it will end well. Fei Lan kept silent for a few seconds then continued, Now do you still want to check this place? Do you still want to go to that mountain? Everybody grimaced, staying quiet. I do. After a while, Shi Yang was the first one to speak. We know nothing about this place. If we don't meet the natives here, it'll be like walking in a maze. I don't like that feeling. If we can meet the natives here, we will know more about this place. About the dangers to be. We're already here and we will continue to be here. Hiding isn't a good solution. Fei Lan had a gleam of appraisal in her cloudy eyes. She nodded and asked, "Does anyone else wants to go? If you've made up your mind, you can go with us. But I have to make it clear that when we encounter dangers, we can't resist. I won't take care of you guys. You can choose to stay here and find a safe area to cultivate or collect spiritual herbs and other cultivating materials. Perhaps you can break through here shortly. I won't force you. Choose what you will do. Of course, I will go with you." Feng Rao smiled and moved to stand next to Shi Yang. "I also want to see it," said Zi Yao. "Of course, I will follow my senior." Ka Tuor waved his hand. If Precursor doesn't stay here, when we meet danger, we would die faster, right? Jester was smart. Although he didn't want to take risks, seeing that Fei Lan made her decision, he could only follow them. His words got the approval of others. The ones who were still hesitant now all wanted to follow her. Fei Lan was the only ethereal Godrealm warrior here, and Leona was at the third sky of original Godrealm. If they didn't go with them, wouldn't it be no different from courting death? They knew what they should choose. Good then. We will go to the Grand Mountain. Let's go. Fei Lan nodded. She didn't fly but ended up walking in front of them, heading to the mysterious area that they had no idea what was to come. Several days later, they found many giant skeletons with jade-like bones. However, those skeletons didn't have any skin or flesh. They seemed to be cleaned and cut neatly. Those skeletons were so huge that they were almost 1,000 meters tall. They were obviously the high-level beasts. Seeing those skeletons, people felt lucky that they had chosen to go with the others. If they had decided to stay, they wouldn't have been safe. Time flew fast. Half a month had passed as quick as a blink of an eye. Then one day, while they were walking, they saw fire surging massively in front of them. This fire was burning hot in the forest. Fei Lan changed her visage slightly, speaking all of a sudden. "There lives a creature." Everybody became anxious. Fei Lan's presumption had come true. This level 7 life star had been exploited. Someone lived here. This place had an owner. Rumble, rumble. The tremor expanded from the fire sea in front of them as if a mountain was shaking hard. This rumbling tremor was like the beats of a drum, pounding on people's hearts and shaking their bodies too. All looked at the area in front of them. They were curious to see what kind of creature was moving towards them. Crack, crack, crack. Some small ancient trees were broken as if someone pulled their roots to cut them. After a gust of strong wind swept through, a young male wearing leather garments appeared. He looked ingenious and straightforward, carrying a 30-meter transparent bone spear. He had a heavy necklace with beast skulls as medallions. His eyes raked through the place to observe the ground. This man was 10 meters tall. He looked like he was made of gold. Gold light radiated from him as if he was wearing golden armor. The Giant Clan. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.